Marvel, it starts when it links with a great clock of the Super God Academy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Microcosmic Dimension Space Multiverse. Li Qingyun's guess about the soul gem may be correct or incorrect. But whether it is correct or not, he has no way to find it now. Even if the soul gem is special, its energy is the same as other infinity gems, and it comes from the beginning of the universe. Through a detailed analysis of the infinity gems, we should be able to find their commonalities. Big Clock, in the subsequent research on the infinity gems, focus on analyzing this point. As long as we can find the commonalities between the infinity gems, no matter how well the soul gem is hidden, we can always find it. Li Qingyun looked at the void in front of him, but he said this to the big clock in his mind. Understood. From now on, I will study different infinity gems at the same time, and then try to find the similarities between them, the big clock answered, and at the same time, a new task has been implemented in its computer system. Study the relationship between ether particles and void engines. Crack more and stronger supernatural factors. Explore whether there is a connection between multidimensional space and different dimensional space. Now there is another one. Find the commonalities between the infinity gems. Li Qingyun has been studying many extremely advanced things without realizing it. Although multidimensional space and different dimensional space mainly refer to dark dimension, dark matter plane space, and multiverse, in Li Qingyun's heart, he is still wondering whether the Marvel Cinematic Universe is related to other universes. For example, the Super God universe and the universe before Li Qingyun traveled through time. He has actually kept his rental house. In order to protect the rental house, Li Qingyun even bought a whole piece of land nearby, and he would go back from time to stay for a while. Others travel through time only after they die. Whether it is direct travel or soul travel, they come by themselves, and at most they bring one or two things. It is rare that the entire rental house travels through time. Moreover, the house he is in is exactly the same as before the travel, but the other people in it are different. So Li Qingyun believes that his travel through time may be different from the conventional travel through time. Even if there is only a little possibility, you should try it, because maybe it will change from a simple travel through time to travel between different worlds of reality and fantasy. Most importantly, studying multidimensional space and the multiverse is also of great benefit to Li Qingyun's study of dark matter plane space. Because the dark matter plane space itself is also an independent dimensional space relative to this world. It is a strange space opened up between reality and illusion by the big clock with the help of super god technology. If the setting of the soul gem is like the comics, with a small world hidden inside the gem, then it should also hide a dimensional space. Therefore, Li Qingyun is more interested in the soul gem now than before. The wormhole opened in front of him, but before Li Qingyun walked over, he still looked back at the space in front of the cliff. Although he couldn't see or find it, he knew that the soul gem was there. When he found the common point of energy between the infinite gems, he would definitely come back again. Take the soul gem from here without sacrificing your beloved. Walk through the wormhole and go to the next destination. After Li Qingyun left, the red skull stood on the edge of the cliff and also looked at the void. He will be back, and it won't be long, said the red skull, and in front of him, a burst of orange light suddenly flickered. That was the soul gem. It was at the location that Li Qingyun had observed before. However, the red skull could see it, but could not touch it. The red skull was cursed, and he could only be the guide of the soul gem, pointing the way for others who came here to find the soul gem. Only when someone successfully took the soul gem away from here one day, he could regain his freedom. Only then would he be qualified to look for other infinity gems and pursue his own dream of ruling the world. Li Qingyun, who left Vormir, went directly to the outskirts of the void. He stood in the starry sky of the universe, looking at the huge sphere floating in the universe in front of him. This is the void, occupied by the collector, and the head left behind by a certain celestial group after his death. However, the facial features and outline of the skull have long been lost. Under the corrosion of time and the continuous excavation by the collector and his workers, the facial features and outline have long been destroyed. Can the supernatural factors be analyzed? Li Qingyun asked. He had already arrived here, and the big clock naturally took samples for analysis as soon as possible. Yes, but these genetic information has lost most of its energy because of the long death time. I need some time to reverse calculate it, and it is best to stay in this void, the big clock replied. Yes, Li Qingyun did not refuse. He had already prepared that this time it would not be smooth sailing, and he had already thought that he might have to stay in the universe. It was for this reason that he reproduced a king of devouring beasts and several other mecha warriors of the TOD Legion on the earth and let them take his place to watch the house. The Cosmic Collector, a seemingly ordinary but actually extremely mysterious existence. He is a cosmic elder, and like the Goshai Anzan of Saka Star, they are all peculiar life forms with a long lifespan. They know many secrets in the universe. The Collector is even more keen on collecting all kinds of strange and bizarre things in the universe. The Infinity Stone is one of the things he wants to collect the most. Li Qingyun did not reveal his identity. He quietly entered the void and wandered around here as an ordinary visitor to the universe. The big clock was analyzing the detailed information of the celestial god group factor. At the same time, Li Qingyun was also invading the collector's treasure house and investigating everything inside. He also wanted to see what special and precious things the collector had collected. The result made him feel a little disappointed. Although the collector's name is very loud, this cosmic elder in the movie, like his brother Goshai Anzan, seems a little inconspicuous. Goshai Anzan became the ruler of Sakar, but ended up ruling the planet in a mess. Later, Thor, the god of thunder, Hulk, and Loki, who accidentally drifted there, turned the world upside down and eventually fell from the altar. This collector is extremely passionate about collecting, but the things he collects here are really sparse and ordinary. Chapter 77 An Invisible Hand. Someone came to the outside of the void through space jump. They were Star-Lord and others who drove the Milan spacecraft. They did not get the cosmic orb, but because Star-Lord was known to be the first person to enter the temple, everyone naturally thought that Star-Lord took the cosmic orb away. Gamora wanted to follow Star-Lord. Rocket Raccoon and Groot were accidentally involved. Drax the Destroyer also joined them to find Ronan. This temporary team came directly to the void. What are they doing here? Li Qingyun stood by the window and looked at the group of funny people. Star-Lord wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of the others, and the others thought that he had the cosmic orb. Li Qingyun activated the Eye of Insight and understood all the thoughts of these people at once. This is really a conspiracy, Li Qingyun sighed, and then took out the cosmic orb that was the most concerned by this group of funny people. The metal sphere outside the cosmic orb automatically separated at this moment, revealing the purple power gem inside. Li Qingyun now has 4 infinity stones in his hands. Space, mind, reality and power. The reality stone has been attached to the sort of heavenly blade in the form of ether particles, and Li Qingyun has no intention of forcibly separating it. The 3 stones of space, mind and power will be used by Li Qingyun to charge the great clock. Among them, the energy output power of the power stone is the highest. When the 6 infinity stones were inlaid on the infinity gauntlet, the power stone actually always stood in a cornerstone-like position. The first one that Thanos personally tried to snatch was the power stone. After mastering the power stone, Thanos' combat power was greatly improved, because the ability of the power stone is to directly enhance combat power and destructive power. In addition, the power stone can also provide energy for other infinity stones, making the power generated by those stones even more powerful. In Li Qingyun's view, the permission principle of the infinity gauntlet, that is, when the 6 infinity stones are combined into one, the reason why they can control the entire universe is because of the mutual cooperation between these 6 abilities. The owner snapped his fingers, which was to give orders to the 6 infinity stones on the infinity gauntlet. The Mind Stone understood the user's true intentions and conveyed the order to the other infinity stones in the most accurate way. According to this order, the Reality Stone began to create the effect the user wanted. The Space Stone made the effect of this creation, that is, the energy generated, begin to spread continuously to the universe. The Time Stone made the generation of this energy unlimited in time, that is, this effect, in conjunction with the Space Stone, can be effective in the entire universe at the same time. The Power Stone provides enough energy to make all the Infinity Stones spread faster and more accurately. As for the Soul Stone, in fact, Li Qingyun has not figured out the exact positioning of the Soul Stone among the 6 Infinity Stones. It may have the same function as the Mind Stone, reading the user's intentions and conveying them to the other Infinity Stones. After all, it can drive the Space Stone according to its own will without a master and a controller, so that the Space Stone can transfer the Red Skull to Vormir. From this point of view, It is reasonable for the Soul Stone to have the ability to control other Infinity Stones. But the soul is ethereal and mysterious. In the data theory model, if there is a Mind Stone, there is no need for a Soul Stone. However, in actual operation, without the Soul Stone, the other 5 Infinity Stones cannot achieve the effect of snapping fingers. I can't figure it out. Li Qingyun sighed and stopped thinking about it. If you can't figure out some things now, you should put them aside for the time being. If you keep thinking about them, sometimes you will only get stuck in a fixed mindset. Just like now, if he only focuses on the Infinity Stones, he will ignore a very important issue. That is Thanos' ability to control intelligence. How can he accurately know the whereabouts of those Infinity Stones? And how did he appear at the most appropriate time in the place where the Infinity Stones are most easily obtained? The other Infinity Stones are easy to explain. But the Space Stone is simply incomprehensible. Although many people know that the Space Stone is in Asgard. But Asgard is the place where the Aesir live. Odin and Hela are both very powerful, the kind of power that Thanos finds difficult to defeat. But Thanos was able to stop Thor and his men precisely after Odin and Hela died, when the Asgardians were on their way to Earth on a huge spaceship. In addition, there was the Reality Stone in the Void, and the Mind Stone was on Vision at the time. Vision hid his whereabouts in order to be with Scarlet Witch. The ether particles were hidden in the Void, and only a few core members of Asgard knew about it. After the Collector got it, he should not be stupid enough to show it off in front of others. Therefore, it is difficult for people to find it under normal circumstances. Vision, who has the Mind Stone, is very powerful among superheroes. But he was attacked by General Corvus Glaive suddenly when he suddenly appeared without knowing it. If General Corvus Glaive had not known where Vision was in advance and had not arranged in advance, how could he have hid him so accurately? There should be a person or organization around Thanos who is extremely good at obtaining intelligence. This is what Li Qingyun discovered when he was thinking about the relationship between the Infinity Stones, and the problem he almost overlooked was this. Why can Thanos grasp the dynamics of all the Infinity Stones so accurately, and why can he control the entire universe so easily and lay out accurately? How could he do this without a strong intelligence network? He has already obtained the Power Stone, and it should be difficult for Star-Lord and other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy to have any intersection. But now they are still gathered together, and they happen to come to the Void. There is obviously a problem here. Behind all these events, there may be an invisible hand that is silently pushing. Perhaps this hand is an intelligence officer or organization that Thanos has secretly laid out. Or it may be, as shown in the American TV series Loki, that it is the Conqueror Kang, the time manipulator, who is deliberately fiddling with it. But the time manipulator can only design, but cannot forcibly change people's thoughts and souls. Without the Power Stone, the Guardians of the Galaxy have no reason to gather together, and the time manipulator cannot forcibly change this setting. Unless he personally guides it. But this kind of thing is unacceptable to the time administration, which is detached from the outside and wants not to affect the normal development of the timeline and the story. Therefore, the most likely explanation is that there is a special person hiding beside Thanos, who is forcibly intervening and guiding with her own abilities, making things develop in this way. In order to create more opportunities for Thanos to obtain the Infinity Stones smoothly. And this person would do this, indicating that she is likely to know about Li Qingyun's situation. On the first day of the holiday, I slept in. Chapter 78 A Sudden Change. Big Clock, can you observe the abnormality around me? Li Qingyun had a suspect in his heart. In the setting of Marvel Comics, Thanos' subordinates are not only the 4 Obsidians, but also the 5 Obsidians. In addition to the 4 that appeared in the movie, there is also a superstar. She is very mysterious and also has extremely powerful abilities. Mind control, telepathy, mental transmission, memory stealing. She can remotely control certain people and use them to obtain intelligence for herself. If she can't control them, she will get them through telepathy and memory stealing. She can even directly transmit her mind and make some people directly become her fanatical believers, or Thanos fanatical believers, and then use this to expand their military strength. Of course, if the conventional operation of the movie universe and the comic universe is followed, the ability of almost every character that appears will be reduced to a certain extent. Therefore, if this superstar really exists, her specific ability remains to be verified. But what is certain is that she must be good at intelligence collection. Because her position among the 5 Obsidians is to collect intelligence. Since the Big Clock entered this world, There has never been any abnormal situation around you, the big clock reported. It is a celestial computer bound to Li Qingyun. From the moment Li Qingyun crossed over, the big clock was there. It has naturally been detecting the situation around Li Qingyun at any time since the beginning. Just like the big clock has been collecting supernatural factors since the beginning. So, it's safe around me, Li Qingyun said. However, Li Qingyun still couldn't make a conclusion about whether the superstar exists and whether she will become a threat. At least from the current situation, someone is indeed pushing all this in secret. Without deliberately avoiding it, Li Qingyun directly put away the power gem and walked out of the room. This void is a large black market trading place in the universe, and people often come and go, so Li Qingyun walking here would not attract anyone's attention. But today, as soon as he walked out of the room, he attracted the attention of many people around him. The workers who originally worked for the collectors, the merchants and thieves who came and went, and Star-Lord who had just arrived, all looked at Li Qingyun. Something is not right, Li Qingyun sighed in his heart. He had seen it, and saw the thoughts of the people around him. More than half of them had developed greed and wanted to catch Li Qingyun and rob him of his property. And there were a few of them with strange thoughts. The big clock could not read their thoughts, but it was obvious that there was something wrong with these people. Finally, there was the group of funny people from the Guardians of the Galaxy. They did not have that kind of greedy thoughts, but they were all full of curiosity. Especially Star-Lord. This was the first time he met an Earthling in the universe. Earthling? He knows I'm an Earthling. Li Qingyun frowned slightly, and the situation seemed to be more serious than he thought. The water in the Marvel universe was indeed not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Someone must have leaked his identity information and secretly promoted the emergence of this situation. What should I do now? Leave directly, the big clock asked. If you can't find the answer directly, then go into this game, Li Qingyun answered. The big clock did not express any other opinions. As the auxiliary computer of the super soldier, it would assist the master in doing whatever he wanted to do. With my current strength, there are not many people in the universe who want to compete with me, and even fewer who want to kill me. 4 things in this world: if you know where the danger is, you can prevent it early, but if you don't know, you must take the initiative to find it. Visible danger is always much safer than invisible danger. Li Qingyun is no longer the rookie when he just crossed over. He became a super soldier and upgraded to the 3rd generation of super soldiers. He was equipped with an unactivated void engine in his body, and he also held the Xianxia sword and 4 infinite gems in his hands. Now that he knew that someone had been eyeing him, how could he remain indifferent? It is better to take the initiative to face it than to escape. Monitor all the situations around you at any time. Once you find any situation that you can't control, tell me immediately. If necessary, you can open the wormhole in advance and transfer me back to Earth. Li Qingyun gave this order to the big clock. Then, he walked directly to Star-Lord. Star-Lord knew that he was from Earth, so Star-Lord must have some other information in his hands. Li Qingyun couldn't directly read all the information in Star-Lord's body. This was because he had the genes of Eagle from the Celestial clan in his body. But Star-Lord's strength was not taken seriously by Li Qingyun. How did you know I was from Earth? Li Qingyun got straight to the point, and the aura on his body spread out at this moment. It was powerful dark energy, and a huge dark shadow appeared behind Li Qingyun, bringing great pressure to everyone around. After the dark matter plane space began to be constructed, Li Qingyun had the ability to open this state. And he was not like Jezailan and Liu Trang, who could only use it in an unconscious state. He can now control it freely, and can release it specifically for certain specific people. Answer me. Li Qingyun looked at Star-Lord, and the huge dark shadow, at this moment, emitted a faint light in his eyes and locked directly on Star-Lord. Even though Star-Lord grew up in the universe and followed a plunderer Yondu, he was well informed, but at this moment he was trembling with fear and took several steps back. I heard it from a cellmate in the prison of the Nova Corps. He told us that there is a human from Earth in the void, and this human has the Infinity Stones, Star-Lord answered, and his words, under the detection of the big clock, did not judge that there was any lie. The big clock could not directly read all the information in Star-Lord's brain. But emotional fluctuations and the information he was extremely concerned about could still be detected. Under such a strong deterrence from Li Qingyun, if what Star-Lord said was false, the big clock would definitely be able to judge it. What about you? Li Qingyun turned around and looked at the people who gathered around with weapons in their hands. In fact, the main focus was on those who were controlled by some special means. Chapter 79, Massacre in the Land of Nothingness. These people were controlled. Li Qingyun did not let the big clock analyze how they were controlled. Because sometimes, taking action directly is more direct than analyzing. Moreover, he also wanted to see how the people hiding behind them would deal with him in the face of such direct inquiries. Stop playing tricks here. I don't believe that you alone can be the opponent of all of us here. Hand over the treasures on you and your infinite gems, otherwise, die. These people were shocked by Li Qingyun's dark projection at first, but at this moment, they all reacted and chose to ignore it one by one. For these people, there are so many strange things in the universe. But in the final analysis, a large part of them are just playing tricks. They are the craziest group of people in the universe, a group of people who can occupy this void and dig out the precious materials hidden in the heads of the gods to obtain resources. Really? Li Qingyun smiled. He looked at these people coldly and summoned the sword of Xianxia casually. Originally, he had no intention of killing people here, thinking that in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the void would be transformed into a huge mobile interstellar spaceship, and could also assist the Guardians of the Galaxy in rescuing a large number of children and animals controlled by the Supreme Evolutionary. But now it seems that he was wrong. The void was originally the center of the universe's black market transactions, and it was simply a place where a group of lawless people gathered. The changes in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 were because this place had already been cleaned many times. Ronan's arrival cleaned it up once. Thanos cleaned it up again when he came to get the ether particles. In the end, the Guardians of the Galaxy used this place as their headquarters, and naturally drove away some of the original disobedient people. This is why there are so few people left in the void in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. After the big waves wash away the sand, the remaining sand is the good sand. Sword, look, the place in the middle of the sword, it's the Reality Stone, that's the Infinity Stone, it's the Reality Stone that the Collector said has the powerful power to change reality. Someone recognized it, recognized the ether particles attached to the Skyxia sword. This void is now controlled by the Collector, and the Collector naturally recognizes the Infinity Stones. Everyone, come together and grab the ether particles. I don't know who shouted first. Then, all the people who gathered rushed out immediately. They brandished swords or held long-range laser guns and cannons to attack Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun stood in place, but the power of thunder flashed on his body. The power of thunder and lightning began to explode at this moment, and a black and gold armor was summoned on his body. The laser shot at Li Qingyun fell on the armor, leaving only a mark for a short time, and then as the energy dissipated, the mark quickly disappeared. The Xianxia sword turned over and did not attack anyone, but directly stabbed into the ground. The long sword instantly penetrated the surface of the ground and inserted into the ground half a meter deep. As the long sword was inserted into the ground, countless lightnings suddenly broke out with a long sword as the center. The lightning spread and appeared at the feet of those who besieged Li Qingyun. The lightning contained extremely strong power. The electric shock effect it produced and the powerful energy it brought with it instantly devoured all these people. Without exception, they were all knocked down. Some of those with weaker defense were directly electrocuted into charcoal. Those who were on the periphery, who had originally thought of picking up the leaks after the first group of people charged, were all dumbfounded at this moment. Some of them had already begun to retreat involuntarily, while others picked up the laser cannon in their hands and aimed at Li Qingyun, preparing to attack again, aiming directly at the head. Li Qingyun drew out his long sword, and his left hand casually grabbed in the air, and a black sharp knife appeared in his hand. Lightning continued to emerge from the sharp knife, and the sharp knife was also suspended in the air under the influence of this lightning. Go, he said softly, and the sharp knife flew out directly as if it had a spirit. It turned into a stream of light and slid across a person's forehead in an instant. The sharpness of the sharp knife allowed it to pass through the person's skull as easily as passing through a piece of water mist. What's more terrifying is that after it passed through the man's head, it immediately disappeared, and when it appeared again, it would be in front of the next target. It appeared very quickly, and it still passed through in the same way. The next scene was repeated continuously. The flying knife passed through a person's head or heart, and then quickly disappeared, and randomly appeared in front of another person. Li Qingyun stood there motionless, but the hundreds of people who had originally gathered around were killed by Li Qingyun at the beginning, and then the flying knife killed the rest in one breath. Whether they came with a try mentality or those who were controlled and secretly promoted this incident, all were without exception after just 1 or 2 minutes. In this huge square, except for Li Qingyun, only the Guardians of the Galaxy could still stand there. They originally came to the land of nothingness for the Infinity Stones. But when Li Qingyun showed a huge dark projection, they became scared. After all, they were not like those people who wanted money but not life, and most of them did not come simply to rob the Infinity Stones. Gamora was here to prevent Thanos from getting the Infinity Stones. Rocket Raccoon just wanted to join in the fun. Groot, the Tree Man, was here purely to follow Rocket Raccoon. Drax the Destroyer wanted to find Ronan. Only Star-Lord wanted to get the Infinity Stones and then sell them. But Star-Lord was the first person to feel the tremendous pressure brought by Li Qingyun's dark matter plane space projection. Therefore, the impact and shock he received was far more terrifying than that of others. Because he had traveled more and seen more in the universe in the past, he understood what the appearance of this projection meant. Just now, everyone else had taken action, but he was the only one who didn't dare to act rashly. Star-Lord didn't move, and naturally the other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't rush to move. And this delay allowed them to see Li Qingyun's move and those people fall quickly. This time, they didn't just stay still for the time being, but they didn't dare to move at all. A casual sword could trigger lightning to burn hundreds of people to death. And a small flying knife could accurately snipe the remaining hundreds of people. Li Qingyun's attack method was too terrifying. Now they can only pray that Li Qingyun will not kill them. Chapter 80 Controlling Everything Within 1 Light Year. The black sharp knife covered by lightning had disappeared again. As for the sword of heavenly destruction, Li Qingyun took it in his hand casually. The reality gem embedded in the long sword continued to emit a faint light. But at this moment, those who saw it no longer wanted to snatch it. The people of the Guardians of the Galaxy were like this, and the Collector, who was watching the scene here from afar through surveillance and telescopes, was the same. How could it be so powerful? The Collector was shocked. This incident was originally secretly participated in and promoted by him. Although there were some external forces involved, he, the Collector, was the ruler of the land of nothingness after all. Without his approval and participation, how could outsiders mobilize so many people to do this at once? The sword in his hand is very special. The Collector turned his attention to the sword of heavenly destruction in Li Qingyun's hand. He didn't recognize this sword, but he could see at a glance that the sword itself was powerful. Although the number of people killed by the small flying knife was not much less than that of the Xianxia sword, the small flying knife killed people by speed and elusiveness. The Xianxia sword was different. It was only used once, and the moment it landed, it burst out with enough electricity to cover hundreds of meters and kill everyone in this range. This was due to Li Qingyun's use of his own abilities. But the moment the Xianxia sword was inserted into the ground, it obviously burst out with power. And this power strengthened the lightning power that Li Qingyun burst out, making its lethality much greater in an instant. Are you interested in my sword? Suddenly, the Xianxia sword, which was still in his telescope, appeared directly in front of him. Li Qingyun came directly to the Collector in the blink of an eye. This speed was beyond the Collector's expectations. He also didn't expect Li Qingyun to find him from such a distance. What do you want to do? The Collector had doubts in his heart, but these doubts were no longer important. Li Qingyun's sword was already in front of him. With Li Qingyun's strength, if he really wanted to do it, the Collector would definitely die. Tell me, who is the person behind you who made you do it to me? Li Qingyun said, and his eye of insight fell on the Collector at this time. If you don't tell me, I can also directly invade your brain and find out everything, but in that case, maybe your brain will be completely destroyed, and you will become a fool from now on. Li Qingyun was naturally trying to scare the Collector. With the eye of insight, he can directly read a lot of information about the Collector, and it won't hurt him. He just wanted to use this method to test whether there are any hidden people around him. A person who can't even be detected by the big clock, and can secretly lurk and set up this trap after Li Qingyun entered the void. I say, whatever you want to know, I can tell you, the longer people live, the more they cherish their lives. The real age of the Collector can no longer be verified, but there is no doubt that it is more than 1,000,000 years or even longer. As an old antique, he didn't have much ability, so he lived to this day by being cautious. Now that he was caught by Li Qingyun, he didn't care if he betrayed his teammates or even himself in order to save his life. That was a woman whose whole body was hidden under a special silver cloak. She didn't appear in the void. She appeared in my mind through mental transmission. She told me that you have the Infinity Stones in your hand, and you don't know how to use the power of the Infinity Stones. She said that she needs to launch a plan against you here. I just need to keep silent, and she will take care of everything else. So, I didn't participate in this matter at all. These troublemakers were controlled and guided by that woman. I didn't intend to target you from the beginning. I didn't even leave this room, the collector said sincerely, but he looked like a frightened bird. But what he said was still not entirely true. He said that he didn't participate at all, but in fact, he was the one who pushed all this secretly. However, he was telling most of the truth. Appeared in his mind by teleportation, told him the situation and asked him to cooperate. And this is a woman hidden under a silver cloak. These data seem to have gradually shown that Li Qingyun's previous guess is likely to be correct. The person who is hiding in the dark and constantly stirring up trouble may be the last of the Black Obsidian generals who has never appeared beside Thanos, the supergiant. She should know that you have the ability to detect abnormalities in the surroundings, so she has never dared to appear by your side, and has not even appeared in my detection range, the big clock reminded. With a big clock's ability to control and monitor dark energy, if that person is really a supergiant, then the big clock will definitely be able to detect her the moment she appears. She uses the ability of teleportation. The effect produced by this ability is no longer within the scope of conventional cosmic energy. It is normal that you cannot detect it. Li Qingyun did not think that there was anything wrong with the big clock failing to monitor the supergiant. The ability of the big clock is based on the existing technological level of the super god universe. In the super god universe, the big clock can use light energy, dark energy, and even void energy, and it can also find all material things. But the supergiant hid far away and used his mental power to infiltrate, which allowed him to jump out of the monitoring range of the big clock in both the energy and material fields. It's impossible for her to completely avoid my detection. As long as she enters my range, even if she hides herself by other special means, I can still detect her, the big clock said. So, she should have some special perception that can quickly escape when you are about to detect her range. Li Qingyun would not doubt the ability of the big clock. From the beginning to the end, he inferred the special ability of the supergiant. Give you the time to prepare. How long will it take to expand the exploration range from me to 1 light year away in an instant? Li Qingyun wanted to find the guy hiding behind the scenes and find the supergiant. And the best way is to catch her off guard and suddenly expand the detection range of the big clock. She should not have time to sense the detection of the big clock's dark communication. Even if she senses it, she will not have time to escape from this range. 5 minutes, the big clock gave an accurate answer, and then it began to accumulate energy. Chapter 81 The Exposed Superstar. This is not a gradual expansion. This is to expand the precise detection that originally existed only within 100 miles around Li Qingyun to all areas within a light year in an instant. To achieve such a degree in an instant, it is naturally necessary to prepare in advance. The last 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1, master all information within a light year range, open, in an instant. A majestic energy instantly spread to the entire space within a light year range. With Li Qingyun as the center and the void as the center, everything is under the control of the big clock and Li Qingyun. At the moment when the energy of the big clock spread, a figure hidden in the shadows in an asteroid belt outside the void suddenly exclaimed. Not good. She was exactly what Li Qingyun was looking for, the one who was secretly pushing many things and trying to stick to Li Qingyun. Among her abilities, there is the characteristic of being able to sense the fluctuations of surrounding energy. Although she did not understand the situation of the big clock monitoring all information data within a certain range through dark energy, she also knew that she could not get close to this range. Therefore, she had been hiding outside the detection range of the big clock for a long time. But today, she miscalculated. She didn't expect that the big clock would expand its detection range so much in an instant. Found it, Li Qingyun frowned and slashed down with the Shiansha sword in his hand. The wormhole appeared in front of him, and he entered it directly with lightning speed. One step out, it was the asteroid belt. His eyes immediately locked on the person wearing a silver cloak who was running away quickly. Li Qingyun's speed was faster than the other party. The Shiansha sword was swung, and a strong light immediately flew out from the tip of the sword and slashed towards the back of the supergiant. The supergiant sensed the strong light flying behind him, looked back, and found that it was an arc of sword energy. Both hands clenched into fists at the same time, and a burst of silver-white light burst out from his body instantly. Her silver cloak is not an ordinary cloth, but is made of super high technology. It has the function of making the supergiant invisible. It is also an extremely strong defensive weapon that can withstand the attack of extremely powerful lasers. However, this time its defense failed. The sword light that Li Qingyun casually slashed out was actually a blow at the level of Void Warrior. Although Li Qingyun wanted to spare her life and wanted to capture her alive to learn more information, he controlled the power to a very small extent when he attacked. But this sword still broke through the defense of her cloak and slashed directly on her back. If she hadn't had a set of silver armor on her body, this sword would have been enough to tear her skin and flesh. Even with the silver armor, she was still knocked out by the impact of the sword light, and fell heavily on a huge rock hundreds of meters away. A mouthful of blood spurted out. She had always been responsible for inquiring and collecting intelligence in the shadows, but this was the first time she was injured so badly. Still want to escape, Li Qingyun jumped directly in front of the superstar. Looking at a blue-skinned girl lying on the ground with blood hanging from the corner of her mouth, Li Qingyun confirmed his previous guess. This person is the superstar. The one among the 5 Obsidian generals who did not appear in the movie. How did you detect my existence? Superstar raised her head and looked at the handsome Earthman in front of her. She has studied Li Qingyun for a long time. Although at most she only used remote mental invasion and observed and studied Li Qingyun through some people who appeared around Li Qingyun. Although she could not get too much information about Li Qingyun. But she also knew Li Qingyun's ability a long time ago, so she was on guard early. But she never thought that Li Qingyun would find her so easily today. You control others to monitor me through mental invasion and mental control, which can indeed prevent you from being directly detected by me. But this time the appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the movements of the entire void are too weird. These unreasonable things naturally make me think that someone is stealing information related to me and then secretly controlling everything, Li Qingyun said. However, what I am most curious about now is how did you know that the Power Stone was in my hands? You had no way of knowing my journey to Morag, after I left Earth? Even if you had the ability of mind control, you could not have kept up with me in a short time, let alone invade Heimdall and Thor on the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard. They were too close to me at the time. If their minds were disturbed, even if it was just a momentary change, I would definitely be able to detect it, and both of them are gods, and they are extremely powerful gods. Your mind control and mind invasion can invade the brains of ordinary people without being noticed, but it is absolutely impossible to invade their brains without causing any abnormalities. So, from the time I left Earth to the time before I came to the land of nothingness, you should have known nothing about my situation. Li Qingyun and the Great Clock could not detect the invasion of mind control on people in the land of nothingness. But Li Qingyun and the Great Clock had already taken precautions. In order to prevent the leakage of super god technology, they even set up a barrier around them that even Heimdall and Odin could not detect. Therefore, in the manor where Li Qingyun lived, and those who had more contact with Li Qingyun on a daily basis, they were absolutely safe. It was impossible for the supergiant to obtain such accurate intelligence through some people on the periphery. You have the power gem, and the things that you have been to Vormir were naturally told to me by the guide, the supergiant answered, and at this time, she looked at the cosmic sky not far away. There, a cosmic network like a honeycomb appeared, and then a huge spaceship flew out of it. Inside the spaceship, countless small spaceships rushed out at the first time. Ronan, Li Qingyun recognized this spaceship. It was the Dark Star of Ronan the Accuser. Mind control, the supergiant shouted, and a powerful mental force instantly invaded Li Qingyun's brain. Li Qingyun frowned, and dark energy burst out instantly, and the computing speed of his brain also increased rapidly at this moment. Mind control is impossible to succeed for Li Qingyun, whose thinking ability has become stronger with the improvement of brain development. However, this momentary invasion gave the supergiant an opportunity. She was not stupid enough to launch a surprise attack on Li Qingyun. Instead, after launching this attack, she immediately entered stealth mode and escaped at the fastest speed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, The Shadow of the Void of the Sword of Heaven. Li Qingyun recovered quickly. He could still sense the location of the supergiant. But before he could attack the supergiant again, countless lasers rained down like raindrops. It was the Dark Army under Ronin, and those small spaceships were attacking. Li Qingyun was a third-generation super soldier, and ordinary attacks could hardly hurt him. But these lasers shot from small spaceships still had a certain effect. The most important thing was that there were too many of them. Facing the attack of this huge number of Dark Army, Li Qingyun had to temporarily stop chasing the supergiant. And his temporary stop gave the supergiant enough time to escape. In the state of invisibility, coupled with the unknown space gate opened by the Dark Star, the supergiant quickly escaped from the range that Li Qingyun could control. This woman can actually jump through space with her physical body. Li Qingyun looked at the space gate where the supergiant just disappeared, and felt surprised. She relies not only on her body, but also on a specially forged armor. Even her cloak is not an ordinary item, otherwise she would not be able to withstand the attack of the heavenly sword. The big clock analyzed. It had locked onto the supergiant from the beginning, and recorded the supergiant's data information in the most detailed way. Now, as time goes by, the information that can be obtained through analysis is getting more and more. You should have recorded her energy and bloodline factors, right? The big clock is collecting useful supernatural factors all the time, and the supergiant's ability is so special that the big clock will never miss it. It has been recorded, and it is being analyzed. It will be integrated with it soon, the big clock replied. Very good. Li Qingyun was very satisfied with the answer. Now, let's find these guys and settle the score for letting the supergiant go. His eyes turned to the Dark Star in front of him. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of the Dark Star, the supergiant would never have escaped. Moreover, this time Li Qingyun not only discovered the supergiant alone. Supergiant had no way of knowing the information about Li Qingyun after she left Earth and before she arrived at the Voidland. What she just said was the information provided by the guide. He was not completely sure whether this guide was the Red Skull, the guide of the Soul Gem of Vormir. They are here for the Infinity Gems, putting aside the matter of supergiant for the time being. The priority now should be the Dark Star and the accuser Ronin. I know, Li Qingyun naturally knew why our Ronin came here. The information that he had the power gem was already known by Supergiant, and Ronin appeared in such a timely manner to save Supergiant. This was naturally because Supergiant had led them here in advance. Boy, do you have an infinity gem in your hand? Ronin's projection appeared in front of Li Qingyun. With the technology of their Kree Empire, it was not difficult to achieve this level. Yes, and there is more than one. Since Supergiant already knew that Li Qingyun had multiple infinity gems, he didn't need to hide it anymore. The Skysha sword in his hand deliberately danced twice, and the red light of the ether particles was directly displayed at this moment. He even summoned the Power Stone and played with it in his hands. 2 Infinity Stones, especially the Power Stone, which could destroy a planet with life in one blow. Ronin broke away from the Kree Empire in order to seek revenge on the Nova Corps. But relying on the military force in his hands alone was not enough to compete with the entire Nova Corps. Therefore, he needed to rely on a more powerful force. And this power was originally Thanos. But now, he felt that he could directly use the Power Stone to obtain it. Give me the Power Stone, and I will let you go, Ronin said, and at the same time, thousands of small spaceships had gathered around Li Qingyun. These spaceships were all aimed at Li Qingyun, and as long as Ronin gave an order, they would immediately open fire. Since you want it, come and get it yourself. Li Qingyun casually put the Power Stone back into the dark matter plane space. Looking for death, Ronin said angrily, and almost at the same time, all the spaceships around Li Qingyun began to attack. Thousands of lasers were all shot at this moment, all aimed at Li Qingyun. However, when the lasers arrived, Li Qingyun disappeared. How could conventional attacks threaten Li Qingyun, who had already mastered the micro-wormhole? Facing these attacks, he just took a step casually to move out of their attack range. Sword of Heavenly Destruction, Shadow of Void. The power of Void burst out from the Sword of Heavenly Destruction at this moment. Countless phantom clones appeared beside Li Qingyun. After these clones appeared, they immediately flew in all directions at the same time. They ignored the spaceships of the Dark Legion and went directly into the interior of the spaceship. Although it was only a phantom clone, the Sword of Heavenly Destruction in the hands of this clone still had a strong attack power. They penetrated the outer layer of the spaceship's defense and entered the interior of the spaceship. The attack of the Sword of Heavenly Destruction directly landed on the soldiers' throats, hearts and other vital parts. In this attack, All the pilots of the thousands of spaceships around were killed. This was Li Qingyun's attack. It was the first time that the Skyshia sword, as a void warrior, released its power. What kind of ability is this? Ronan's face changed in shock. He had just witnessed everything. He saw Li Qingyun disappear at the attack coordinates of the spacecraft in an instant, and then moved to the periphery of the spacecraft. The long sword was swung and transformed into countless phantoms, and the attacks of these phantoms killed all the pilots in his thousands of Dark Legion spacecraft. Attack! Attack everyone! Ronan felt an inexplicable fear in his heart, but he was unwilling to give up this opportunity. In the Dark Star, all the combat spacecrafts broke away from the mothership and flew out at this moment. They flew towards Li Qingyun regardless of the cost. Capture the thief first. Li Qingyun's eyes fell on the Dark Star. To fight against Ronan's entire Dark Legion, Li Qingyun might need to expend a lot of energy. But if it was just to kill Ronan alone, it would be easy for Li Qingyun. Locking the coordinates of the Dark Star command room, Li Qingyun flew directly through the wormhole. Li Qingyun was behind Ronan in an instant. At this moment, the sword of Xianxia, without any hesitation, chopped directly towards Ronan's neck. Chapter 83 I want to be as cool as Kisha. Li Qingyun's sword shocked Ronan. He instinctively dodged backwards, and Li Qingyun's sword did not directly cut off his head. On Ronan's head, he wore a helmet commonly worn by the Kree Empire's accusers. Although this helmet does not look good, it is a defensive helmet made of the highest technology of the Kree Empire. The material used in it is extremely strong, and it is difficult to destroy it with ordinary attacks. The body of Ronan the Accuser has also been transformed by multiple drugs. Ronan can knock down Drax the Destroyer with his bare hands, and Drax can withstand multiple laser cannon attacks in subsequent movies. Therefore, Ronan's defense is difficult to be damaged by conventional attacks. His own defense is amazing, and the helmet blocked it. Most importantly, Li Qingyun did not hit his vitals. Not bad reaction. Li Qingyun turned around and looked at Ronan, who was still in shock. Damn it, he reached out and found a bloody wound on his neck. Ronan, who had always been the accuser of the Kree Empire, had not been hurt for a long time. Now he was injured by Li Qingyun right at the start, and if he had not dodged, he would have been cut off by the neck. The huge sense of crisis, coupled with the pain caused by the injury at this moment, has made him extremely angry. Go, kill this guy, Ronan roared, and everyone in the command room took out their weapons and rushed towards Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun looked at these people and smiled contemptuously. How could such a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals have any impact on him? The Xianxia sword was swung casually a few times, and sword energy flew out from the blade. In an instant, all those who surrounded and killed him were killed by Li Qingyun. Easily, without any difficulty. How is this possible? Ronan looked at the people lying on the ground in disbelief, especially when he saw that the pursuer Corliss was also in the pile of fallen bodies. He was even more shocked. This is his most capable general, and his fighting ability is also very strong. But now, he is just like other soldiers, and was killed by Li Qingyun's casual sword. Nothing is impossible. Li Qingyun sneered and looked at Ronan in front of him. You think you are very strong, but in fact you are just a clown? Even if you are given the power gem, you can't realize your wish to destroy Xander. Li Qingyun did not look down on Ronan in front of him, but he actually failed to destroy Xander. In the movie, Ronan, who got the power gem, was embarrassed to death by Star-Lord's dance. Embarrassed, and then died. Don't look down on me. Ronan forced himself to suppress the fear in his heart. He raised a warhammer in his hand and rushed towards Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun stepped forward with his left foot and raised the sword of Xianxia. At the moment when Ronan rushed over and was about to reach him, he took a step forward and chopped down with the sword of Xianxia. This sword was a sword that Li Qingyun used all his strength. Knowing that Ronan was wearing a sturdy helmet, and knowing that his body defense was amazing. But this sword, Li Qingyun was 100% sure that Ronan would not be able to withstand it. Clang. The sword of heavenly destruction chopped directly from Ronan's head, diagonally, splitting his head in half. The hammer he raised was now frozen in midair. It was not until a moment later that it fell to the ground with his body. Blood flowed out of the split head. And the paste on the ground also flowed out. I used to think that to fight a supervillain, you need to have continuous back and forth tugs, and you need superb fighting skills, but now it seems that under the absolute power suppression, all that is completely useless. Li Qingyun's move in the void this time can be said to be extremely easy. In the void, Two simple moves slaughtered more than 1,000 thugs on the black market. In space, the power of the Sword of Heavenly Destruction exploded, instantly killing all the pilots in thousands of aircraft. Now in the command room of the Dark Star, Ronan the Accuser, one of the great villains of the galaxy, was killed with one sword. He has begun to yearn for the fighting style of Holy Kisha. Just sit on the throne, move your fingers casually, and then command Silverwing to easily solve the enemy. If Silverwing can't solve it, there is still the huge Angel of Judgment. As strong as the 4th generation Demon King Liangbing, he was also grabbed by the Angel of Judgment and thrown to the ground casually, and almost pierced with a sword. That style and momentum are directly full. Your current ability is not enough to control such a powerful god-killing weapon. Moreover, without Dark Su Yin, weapons like Kesha's Silverwing cannot be created. The big clock knew what Li Qingyun was thinking at the moment, and directly explained the feasibility of these ideas. Hey, how can you say this directly? Can't I imagine it? Li Qingyun felt a little speechless. Isn't the big clock ruining his fun? But he had no choice. Although the big clock was communicating with Li Qingyun in a relatively anthropomorphic way because of his instructions. But the big clock is a machine after all. When it deals with everything, it will prioritize rationality. The big clock also knew what Li Qingyun was thinking at this time. It did not continue to dwell on this issue, but raised a new question. Do we need to take away this dark star? The big clock asked. Well, transfer it to the solar system first. As for the remaining people on the ship, use the wormhole to send them all to space. Li Qingyun nodded. The Dark Star was not sent back to Earth directly because there was already a Dark Elf mothership on Earth. And the Dark Star is not like the Dark Elf mothership, which has the ability to be invisible. Bringing it back to Earth will inevitably attract global attention. Although Li Qingyun does not need to be afraid of anything now, he does not need to make the situation so complicated. There are already 2 motherships, but I only have 8 Shen mechas under my command. Isn't this too few? Li Qingyun suddenly found that the spoils he collected did not seem to be very effective. The Dark Elf mothership stayed on Earth. Although Li Qingyun wanted to learn about the technology in the Dark Elf mothership at the beginning, now he has learned everything he needs to know. He even knows what the black hole bomb is. Therefore, it can only be a decoration now, and 2 people have to be specially arranged to watch it. The Dark Star was transported back to the solar system, and the result was the same. Someone had to be sent to watch it, and there was no other specific use value. Maybe it will be useful in the future. Li Qingyun could only think like this. Because he couldn't bear to blow up the intact mothership in vain. Chapter 84 Surrender. There is no other choice. The Dark Star was eventually transferred to the solar system. Li Qingyun also asked the big clock to make 2 Shen mechas and asked them to go to the Dark Star to take charge of the care. After dealing with the Dark Star, Li Qingyun returned to the void. He had not yet completed the complete analysis of the factors of the Celestial God Group, and now he had obtained the factors of the Supergiant, and Li Qingyun also wanted to analyze it. Although the combat power of the Supergiant was not strong, her supernatural factors had the ability to control the mind. This ability was still very powerful. Through the method of mental invasion, it directly bypassed the big clock's exploration of energy and matter, and approached Li Qingyun's surroundings to obtain intelligence. Although this ability could not directly affect Li Qingyun and a group of people close to Li Qingyun, it was still very useful. Moreover, Li Qingyun had to figure out how mental power was specifically generated and what kind of energy structure it had. Only after figuring out everything could the big clock record it, and in the future, even if the supergiant used mental power to do anything, the big clock would be able to detect it. When Li Qingyun returned to the void, the Guardians of the Galaxy had been waiting for a long time. The remaining people in the void also walked out of their homes and watched Li Qingyun. The Collector was standing in front of these people. He was the ruler here, but now he was no longer qualified to rule here. Everything depended on Li Qingyun. This man who suddenly came to the void had shocked everyone. The accuser Ronan and his army were wiped out by Li Qingyun alone. So many thugs in the void were also wiped out. Li Qingyun was already a powerful existence that was enough to shock a country with his own strength. Star-Lord, come here. Li Qingyun ignored the others and looked at Star-Lord. Yes, Star-Lord did not dare to be negligent. He came directly to Li Qingyun. You have the energy factor of the Celestials in your body. Do you want to try to stimulate it? The Celestials? Star-Lord was stunned. The Celestials? He only knew the Celestials, which were the most powerful group of monsters in the universe. The place they were standing on was the head of a dead Celestial. The Celestials are very similar to the Celestials. As for whether they are the same race, I cannot make a direct judgment now, but there is no doubt that you have Celestial genes in your body, so I can stimulate the energy contained in the Celestial genes for you. Li Qingyun looked at Star-Lord. Just when he sees the Dark Star, Li Qingyun had the idea of forming his own power and gathering more people. And to gather people, there is a group of suitable people in front of him. These members of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the remaining residents of the Void can all be used. In Guardians of the Galaxy 3, didn't the Guardians of the Galaxy become the managers of the Void, and even transform the entire Void into a huge spaceship? Li Qingyun was attracted by the abilities of these people, and he could also help them further develop their abilities. Although, they are all a bunch of funny people. But if they are used well, they can also become a great help. You have to stimulate the energy in my body for me, so what should I do for you? After all, Star-Lord grew up with a plunderer Yondu, so his vigilance is always very high. Li Qingyun has no friendship with him, but now he suddenly said that he would stimulate his potential. This is obviously problematic. Be my subordinate, Star-Lord frowned. This is a very serious word. In the past, he was under the command of Yondu. Although he was also a subordinate, he was actually much freer than ordinary people. But now this Li Qingyun is obviously different from Yondu. Li Qingyun's strength is really too strong. If he really becomes Li Qingyun's subordinate and wants to rebel again, the result is probably almost the same as seeking death. But the question now is, can he refuse? No. Before Star-Lord began to ask questions, Li Qingyun gave a direct answer. This made Star-Lord, who is already nervous, feel even more helpless at this moment. This is not only powerful, but also can see through his mind directly. Once you become my subordinate, I will be able to track you down no matter where you go. You have no reason or power to refuse the orders I have issued. Moreover, this is something you cannot refuse. The only choice you have is to accept my awakening of your abilities or not to accept these two. Li Qingyun said it directly. Not only you, but the group of people with you are all my subordinates. Your first task is to complete the governance and transformation of the Void Land. From now on, the Void Land is a small base of mine, Li Qingyun, in the universe, and you are assisting me in managing this base and monitoring an outpost of the entire universe at the same time. Li Qingyun's words not only left Star-Lord speechless, but also the Guardians of the Galaxy and everyone in the Void Land speechless. Li Qingyun was already issuing a direct notice, and it was a notice that no one could refuse to execute. You could try to resist directly, but the result of resistance. The bodies of more than 1,000 people who were killed instantly before were still lying on the ground around. Since I have to be your subordinate no matter what, I naturally want to gain stronger power. Star-Lord did not hesitate. Anyway, there is no choice, so let's try to get as many benefits as possible. This is the power of the Celestials. After obtaining it, I will become a half-god. Very good. Li Qingyun was very satisfied with Star-Lord's choice. Rocket, come here too. Li Qingyun looked at Rocket Raccoon. Me. Rocket Raccoon hesitated. He didn't expect Li Qingyun to call his name. When your body was transformed, the Supreme Evolution implanted a self-destruction program in it. This time, I will help you remove it, Li Qingyun said casually, but his words, when they reached Rocket Raccoon's ears, shocked his mind like thunder. Supreme Evolution. Rocket Raccoon has never mentioned his experience to outsiders, and no one knows what his origin is. But now, Li Qingyun directly told the relationship between himself and the Supreme Evolution, and even knew the secret that the Supreme Evolution installed a self-destruction program in his body. Don't be afraid. Li Qingyun looked at Rocket Raccoon, who was a little hesitant at this time, and comforted him. Since you are already my subordinates, I will protect you while you work for me. If the Supreme Evolution really comes to you one day, and you can't compete on your own, just come to me. Li Qingyun gave Rocket Raccoon a shot of adrenaline. It's just the Supreme Evolution, it's no big deal to Li Qingyun. Chapter 85 Energy Factor of the Celestial Group. It is said that he has the most invention patents in the universe, and has the ability to make creatures and humans evolve directly for millions of years. But in fact, the Supreme Evolution is just a petty person. Seeing that Rocket Raccoon has a smarter brain than him, he wants to make himself smarter by directly obtaining Rocket Raccoon's brain. He said that he can even master gravity, how powerful he is. But in the end, He was killed by a joint attack by the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Supreme Evolution has a loud name, but the way he died and what he did were really not up to the standard. Integrating dark energy into Star-Lord's body, stimulating the energy of the Celestials in his genes, making Star-Lord have the power of a true demigod. And the self-destruct program in Rocket Raccoon's body, with the computing power of the big clock, it is a matter of minutes to crack this program. After dealing with the situation of Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, they will take over the rule of the entire void. As for the Collector, he left. Li Qingyun did not stop him. What he wanted was this void, an outpost that would take root in the universe in the future. The Collector had no effect on Li Qingyun. 3 days later, Li Qingyun completed the analysis of the Celestial God Group's factor. What are the specific data of the Celestial God Group's factor? Li Qingyun entered the dark matter plane space and looked at a group of light spots in front of him. This was the Celestial God Group's supernatural factor, a peculiar factor that contained the energy characteristics of their Celestial God Group. This factor has very powerful energy. In terms of the level of quantity, it is even more powerful than Thor's lightning factor. They were born on the planet and were born by obtaining the energy of the planet's intelligent life for tens of millions of years. After they were born, they had the ability to create a star system, the big clock explained. Have the ability to create a star system. Li Qingyun actually recognized this ability. Although Li Qingyun has a strong combat power, it seems that it is difficult for him to create a star system at his current level. Unless the operation mode of a certain star system is accurately controlled and simulated through the big clock, it can be finally realized. The simulation ability of the big clock can even simulate the birth and evolution of a universe. But the big clock does not have the ability to create matter directly. It can only create by transforming the surrounding environment and using the original matter in the universe. If you merge the factors of the Celestial Group now, the power you can obtain will not be very strong, because it needs to absorb the life force of a planet for a long time to continue to grow, the big clock reminded. This is not difficult, right? Li Qingyun did not care much about this. The Celestial Group can rely on the Earth to obtain powerful life energy, and I can naturally obtain the same life energy based on the Earth. Moreover, through energy docking, perhaps the energy of some other life planets in the universe can also be guided to me. In Li Qingyun's understanding, the way the Celestial Group obtains power to be born is the same as the gods absorbing faith. However, the Celestial Group creates a star system and leaves the seeds of the Celestial Group in the life planet, and obtains energy through the entire process from the birth to the development of life. And because it was originally bred inside the planet, it will destroy the life planet itself after birth. But Li Qingyun does not need to do so. He can completely collect the life energy he needs through the big clock. By using special tools like altars to bind other life planets to himself, he can naturally obtain the life energy of multiple planets at one time, so that he can obtain energy faster. It took billions of years for the Celestial God Group to be nurtured, and Li Qingyun used this method, so the time consumed would naturally be greatly shortened. If that's the case, I'm afraid you have to rule more life planets. The big clock has understood Li Qingyun's intention. This method is the same as the birth and development of a main god civilization. Death God Karl created the Death Song Academy with himself as the center, and there are only a few people around him. But the Death Song Academy was built in the Dark Nebula, and all the life planets in the entire Dark Nebula actually belong to him. The Teodi Legion and the Giant Wolf Legion are just a part of these ruled life planets. However, Death God Karl studies death and the void. In the continuous battle in the Dark Nebula where he is, life is continuously and frequently consumed. The remaining population of all the civilizations formed by the Teodi core, the Giant Wolf core and other beastly life forms is less than 1 million. What Li Qingyun wants is life energy, so the life planet he wants to control must be like the Angel Nebula, controlled by the Mellow Heaven. With a powerful angel army, control all other planets in the Angel Nebula, suppress the development of their military technology, and prevent them from entering a situation of military hegemony like the Denner civilization. All civilizations in the nebula get along with each other in a friendly manner and unite under the glory of justice. I don't need to guide their thoughts and beliefs, I just need them to recognize me as their king. Li Qingyun didn't think about creating a Mellow Heaven or a Dead Song Academy. He just wanted to find a way to get energy from more life planets, so as long as he could find those life planets and place the energy-getting equipment on that planet. And in the process, he can become their king. By the way, how much material do you have here, and how many Shen mechas can you make? Li Qingyun asked. The materials we have now can produce 200 shin mechas, the big clock gave the answer. Then start manufacturing them. In the shortest possible time, make them the first army under my command. Li Qingyun now ruled the land of nothingness, but here, at most, they were a mob, not an army. He will try to find more planets with life next, and turn to these planets. To successfully build an altar that can obtain life energy, he needs the participation of the army. Copying the memory data of the Teodi Legion and creating Shen mechas is the most convenient and fastest way. Understood, I'll start now, the big clock agreed, and then, under the ground of Li Qingyun's manor on Earth, the underground factory began to operate again. At this moment, Li Qingyun reached out and grabbed the energy factor of the celestial god group. He began the process of fusing this energy factor with his own super gene. Chapter 86 Taking Hulk to Succor. After integrating the energy factors of the celestial god group, the first real army was created. Li Qingyun began to expand his power. When 200 Shin mechas appeared in the manor, the whole earth was shocked. Banner and others who originally lived in the manor knew these Shin mechas best. They knew how powerful these mechas were. There were only 10 at first, but now there are 200 more. This shows that something is happening at this time. Perhaps Li Qingyun is planning to do something. Banner contacted Li Qingyun directly. Old Li, what are you doing? Banner and Li Qingyun have the best relationship. Now that Li Qingyun has arrived in the universe, the Earth has created 200 Shin mechas at once. He has to figure out what is going on. There are a lot of things to deal with. If there are not enough people, just make some. It's no big deal. Li Qingyun did not say that he was going to other life planets to build altars, temples and other things. Although Banner is a friend of him, Li Qingyun has no obligation to tell him everything. Are there a lot of things? Banner looked at the rows of Shen mechas standing in the manor with some hesitation. Do you need my help? Banner finally chose to believe Li Qingyun. At least in the years they knew each other, Li Qingyun had not done anything bad. On the contrary, because of Li Qingyun's actions, 2 major crises were solved. Loki invaded the Earth and the Dark Elves attempted to change the universe. He felt that what Li Qingyun was doing now should also be a good thing. There is a place suitable for Hulk to play. Li Qingyun thought of Succor. Hulk likes to fight and likes to be recognized by everyone. In the arena of Succor, Hulk can release his nature to his heart's content. Suitable for Hulk, Banner was a little confused. I'll open the wormhole for you. You come to my side first. When I finish my business here, I'll go with you to take a look, Li Qingyun said, and then a space wormhole appeared in front of Banner. Banner hesitated for a moment. But in the end, he walked in directly. He really had nothing to do if he stayed on Earth, so he might be able to gain something by going to the universe. After crossing the wormhole, the other side was the land of nothingness. He had completed the fusion of the celestial group factor, and now he had a certain amount of celestial group power in his body. However, this power was not very strong because he had not yet received a large amount of life energy injection. Li Qingyun had no specific plan for the next trip. His purpose of coming out this time was to come to the land of nothingness, to fully understand the data of the celestial group factor, and finally complete the fusion of the celestial group factor. The second thing was to get the power stone and the soul stone. Now, the celestial group factor had been fused, the power stone was in hand, but as for the soul stone, he could not get it for the time being. As for the original method of obtaining it, Li Qingyun would not do it in exchange for the life of his beloved. The soul stone was on Vormir, and few people knew about it. Li Qingyun could wait until he became stronger and studied the common points between the Infinity Stones before obtaining it. Even if someone else found Vormir and got the soul stone, it would be a good thing for Li Qingyun. Because the soul gem was not on that sealed state, it was easier for Li Qingyun to get it. Where is this? Banner carefully observed the surrounding environment, watching the aliens of all shapes and sizes coming and going. Some with red skin, some with green skin, some that looked like raccoons, and some that looked like trees. The universe, aliens. Although Banner had been to Asgard with Li Qingyun before, and had beaten up Loki and fought against the Dark Elves together, it was the first time for him to encounter so many different races of cosmic life forms gathered together. This is the land of nothingness, a stronghold I just took down, Li Qingyun said, and everyone who walked past him, without exception, would nod and salute Li Qingyun respectfully. You took it down? So you rule here? Banner was a little surprised. Li Qingyun was also very strong when he was on Earth, but he was still very low-key. Although he occupied a very large manor, he didn't seem to do anything except win over a few scientists and create a batch of robots. How come he has ruled a planet just a few days after coming to the universe? However, this doesn't seem to be a planet. How did you go to visit your relatives? Li Qingyun asked. When he first left the Earth, Banner said that he wanted to go back to see his family. Now that he is back in the manor, the visit must be over. I have seen everyone I should see, and there is nothing else. Banner didn't say much. In fact, he didn't gain anything from this trip. Although he met the people he wanted to see, the previous problems still exist. After becoming the Hulk, it is unlikely that he and his relatives and friends in the past will continue to restore their past appearance. Don't worry, they will slowly accept all this in the future. Li Qingyun naturally knew Banner's situation. Let's go, I'll take you to Sakura to relax. You will definitely like the environment there. Li Qingyun opened the wormhole again, and this time the coordinates were Sakura. This Sakura is a planet like a garbage dump. There are piles of garbage everywhere, and there are so many wormholes that constantly transmit new garbage from the universe. Among these garbage dumps, there is a city. It is the only place on the planet that does not look like a landfill. In the center of this city is a huge fighting arena. Catch them! Li Qingyun and Banner had just appeared when a large group of people suddenly rushed out of the garbage dump. They held homemade weapons and shot at a large net when they pulled the trigger. Banner subconsciously stepped back half a step. At this time, Li Qingyun waved his hand casually. A burst of energy appeared on the large net out of thin air, followed by a flame. The large net was burned to ashes in mid-air. The appearance of this scene made other people around who wanted to take action back. But there are exceptions. It was a woman with messy long hair, painted faces, and a woman wearing simple armor. Valkyrie. Li Qingyun recognized her. The big clock has long locked all the targets around that may pose a threat. This Valkyrie from Asgard is naturally the most popular one. Chapter 87. Kneel down, everyone. The Valkyrie raised the gun in her hand, and a special bullet was shot at the position of Li Qingyun's neck. However, before the bullet landed on Li Qingyun, a flash of lightning appeared by itself. The flying bullet was attacked by lightning and fell directly. The bullet was actually a special electric shock device. In Thor 3, the device that shocked Thor to the ground several times. As the god of thunder and lightning, Thor was actually stunned by the electric shock device. Thor was really unworthy of his title. Valkyrie, you'd better take it easy. Li Qingyun looked at Valkyrie. The last Valkyrie of Asgard should have been a glorious god, but now she has become a thug of this planet Sakura. For thousands of years, she has been playing badly here. Who are you? The Valkyrie's face was solemn, and her right hand had inadvertently grasped a sword at her waist. Lord of Shin, Li Qingyun said, and then he slowly flew into the air. From today on, this planet belongs to me. Go Xianzhen, why don't you come out to see me? Li Qingyun's words at this moment were heard by everyone on this planet at the same time. The dark communication of the big clock has covered the entire Sakura planet. All the information in all the situations on Sakura planet are under Li Qingyun's control. Where did this arrogant boy come from? Go Xianzhen was with a large number of his men at this moment. Seeing that Li Qingyun was so blatantly provoking him, his face became extremely ugly. Send soldiers over and kill him directly. Go Xianzhen gave the order directly, and then a large number of soldiers took up their weapons and rushed in the direction of Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun looked at this scene and sneered unconsciously. His reputation in the universe is still too weak, and there are still too few people who know him. Otherwise, how dare these shrimp soldiers and crab generals, holding a fire stick, come to him? Kneel down. This sentence spread throughout the planet. Immediately afterwards, a majestic pressure appeared directly on everyone on Sakura planet, including Go Xianzhen, the ruler of the planet, and those warriors with relatively strong strength. Even the Valkyrie could not avoid it. Li Qingyun was releasing pure dark energy at this moment, forcibly suppressing everyone on the planet with dark energy, making them feel an incomparable oppressive force. Holy Kashyap can suppress Morgana, the fourth-generation divine body, with a wave of his hand. Li Qingyun is now also a third-generation super soldier, and there is a big clock behind him to continue to provide energy and computing support. It is so easy to suppress a group of ordinary people with this trick. I only give you two choices, either surrender, or die. Li Qingyun's words echoed in everyone's mind. These interstellar refugees who wandered from all over the universe used to be ruled by Goshianzan. Now facing the oppression of Li Qingyun, their fate is just to change someone to rule. Therefore, most people immediately changed their minds. They accepted this fact one after another, turned to look in the direction of Li Qingyun, and knelt down one after another. When facing those who have surrendered, Li Qingyun will immediately remove the pressure on them, and then transfer the withdrawn energy to those who are still resisting. For example, Goshianzan and the Valkyrie. It was not difficult for them to bear the pressure that was originally shared by everyone on the entire planet. Now that these energies have begun to concentrate and gather on the few of them, the pressure has become extremely strong. In the end, even Goshianzan has surrendered. He knelt down on his knees with a helpless look on his face and knocked his head on the ground. The last Valkyrie, although she didn't want to be conquered by others again, she couldn't bear it anymore. She knelt on her knees and supported her body with her hands to prevent herself from falling. The beads of sweat on her head kept falling down, so that even the pastels on her face had become blurred. Hold on for another minute, and I will take you as my subordinate. Li Qingyun ignored the others and went straight to the Valkyrie. Although he didn't like the Valkyrie very much, he admired her stubbornness at this moment. Stubborn people are always better than those spineless ones. You want me to be your subordinate? Then I might as well give up. The Valkyrie was unwilling to surrender, so she kept insisting. Now that she heard that she would have to be Li Qingyun's subordinate after 1 minute, she was immediately unhappy. Lie down, you will be the same as them in the future, just my slave. They have to do whatever I say, and they have no right to refuse, but if you can persist, as my subordinate, you have enough autonomy. If you can make great contributions to me in the future, I will let you go directly and let you do whatever you want. The difference between the two is huge, Li Qingyun said. The Valkyrie who heard his words, who had already planned to give up, reluctantly persisted at this time. With enough autonomy, there is still a chance to get rid of Li Qingyun's control in the future. Even if it is just a chance, she is willing to try her best to persist for 1 minute. Li Qingyun saw that the Valkyrie was still holding on, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. 1 minute, in Li Qingyun's eyes, was just a very short time. But this minute was long for the Valkyrie at this moment. The continuously increasing energy suppression made her feel like she was bearing the weight of a mountain. Her knees had sunk deeply into the ground, and her arms supporting the ground had also been bent. This girl is quite stubborn. Banner came to Li Qingyun's side and looked at the Valkyrie who was struggling to support herself with emotion. By the way, do you really want to rule this planet? Banner didn't quite understand why Li Qingyun suddenly wanted to rule the planet. Yes, Li Qingyun answered. You want to make them slaves? What specifically do you want them to do for you? Banner was very puzzled. Li Qingyun could make robots by himself, and when he was on Earth, he let robots do everything. How come he suddenly wanted to rule other planets not long after coming out of the universe? You don't need to do anything, Li Qingyun just needs to build a platform here to absorb life energy. The rest has no effect on him anyway. They will be the same as they were before. What? The Valkyrie raised her head suddenly. Then, all the strength in her body dissipated at this moment, and she fell directly to the ground. Chapter 88 The God of Sokka. What happened before, will be what it will be in the future. Doesn't it mean that if she lies down, can she still live the same life as before? Since her original life has not changed at all, what is she doing by struggling to hold on? Is she asking for trouble? Congratulations, you have successfully held on for 1 minute. And from now on you will be my subordinate. Li Qingyun looked at the Valkyrie who was now lying on the ground gasping with a frustrated face with interest. What do I have to do as your subordinate? The Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyun. At this moment, she could only hope that as Li Qingyun's subordinate, she could stay here and live the same as before, just like everyone else on Sakura. Follow me, or follow my assignment to do other tasks, Li Qingyun said with a smile. Can I choose to be like them? The Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyun with expectation, but what greeted her was Li Qingyun's shaking head and refusing. At this moment, the Valkyrie was about to cry in her heart. Why did she have to be so strong for no reason? She held on to the end, and held on for 1 more minute. In the end, everyone else can live here as before, but she has to become a worker and do hard labor for Li Qingyun. Banner, who was standing aside, could only look at the Valkyrie silently with a pitiful expression. Let Hulk come out, and then we will go to the arena to play. Li Qingyun looked at Banner and said. Oh, Banner nodded helplessly. Then, his body began to change. The body of the normal person began to expand continuously at this moment, and the skin on his body turned green. Seeing with his own eyes that a person who was very gentle before suddenly turned into a big green guy, everyone around was shocked. Even the Valkyrie was a little surprised at this time. But then, she took a look at Li Qingyun and accepted it all calmly. Li Qingyun suppressed the entire sacker with just one sentence. Banner was with him, so how could he be an ordinary person? But he shouldn't change, right? The Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyun. With such a handsome face and such a perfect figure, it would be a pity if he turned into a big green guy. Don't worry, I won't change. Li Qingyun smiled slightly, but his words made the Valkyrie look embarrassed. Her thoughts were directly seen through by the other party. In the future, she would not have any privacy or secrets in front of Li Qingyun. Lead the way, let's go to the arena, Li Qingyun said. The Valkyrie, who was still in a daze, could only get up helplessly at this time. She walked in front and led Li Qingyun and others to the arena. When Gao Xianzhen learned that Li Qingyun was coming to the arena, he also quickly prepared to welcome him. All his people lined up outside the arena to welcome him. Even the spaceship originally used for the celebration was driven out. Although they had heard that Li Qingyun did not intend to destroy the original appearance of their Saka star, Li Qingyun had actually become their ruler. Gao Xianzhen had realized that Li Qingyun might not be the kind of person who liked to grab territory. His purpose of coming here was just to gain a reputation. He might just leave after playing for a few days. As long as he served Li Qingyun well in these few days, he would still be the actual controller of Sakura after Li Qingyun left, and he could still do whatever he wanted here. Li Qingyun naturally knew what Gao Xianzhen was thinking. But he was too lazy to expose it. Anyway, he couldn't stay on Sakura forever, and he still needed a manager here. As for who this manager was and how he would manage it, it didn't matter to Li Qingyun at all. Entering the arena, Li Qingyun sat in the best viewing seat that Gao Xianzhen had used before. Hulk went directly to the bottom of the arena and started fighting one after another. At the beginning, the spectators at the venue were still frightened by the pressure brought by Li Qingyun before, so they couldn't let go. Later, as several battles went on, as Hulk showed his extremely impactful violent aesthetics, the people around him became excited one by one. They had forgotten the fear of being crushed before, and began to devote themselves to these exciting competitions. For the people of Sakura, they have completely accepted the emergence of a brand new ruler like Li Qingyun. In the next few days, Hulk continued to participate in the battle. In this battle, he gradually found the feeling of being praised by everyone that he had never had before. During this period, Li Qingyun found Gao Xianzhen and gave him an order. Let Gao Xianzhen gather a large number of workers on this planet and start building a huge altar. This altar is used to connect with a big clock. Li Qingyun will let Shen Mecha come to install some specific core devices later. The overall altar needs to be taken care of by the Sakura people themselves. Gao Xianzhen and others didn't think there was anything wrong with the construction of this altar. Anyway, those who won the final championship in the competition field before would also carve its appearance on a huge cliff. Li Qingyun is now just a little more outstanding than those powerful warriors, and he directly built a new altar. Therefore, the altar on the first life planet was built naturally. From the moment the altar was built, this planet completely belonged to Li Qingyun. The altar is a huge symbol, symbolizing that Li Qingyun is the supreme king of this planet and their god. Even if the initial submission was only because of Li Qingyun's powerful strength. But when this power reaches a very high level, it will be deified. In addition, after Li Qingyun left, Banner, who occasionally recovered from Hulk, made a new reform here. For example, Gao Xianzhen's exploitation of other people on the planet was stopped, and the participants in the arena were changed from being completely coerced to semi-voluntary. The reason why it was not completely voluntary was that Banner could not appear for a long time, and Hulk did not want to end the fun of this battle, so a semi-voluntary situation appeared. Half willing, half coerced. It may not be as cruel and tragic as before, but this arena cannot be stopped. This kind of superior living environment to a certain extent is a great benefit for the ordinary residents of Sakura. Naturally, these people had a lot of good feelings towards Li Qingyun, the new ruler who changed their planet. The absolute strength deterrence, plus the respectful good feelings. Li Qingyun's status and influence on Sakura naturally became more and more far-reaching. Li Qingyun slowly became the god of Sakura. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Thanos' Suspicion, The Vanguard Attacks. Li Qingyun left Sakura soon. He began to travel in the universe, with a reluctant Valkyrie by his side. According to the cosmic star map that the big clock learned from Himdall's observation, Li Qingyun went to one life planet after another. If the original living conditions of this planet are very good, the people live and work in peace and contentment, the planetary environment is excellent, and the ruling class is very complete. Li Qingyun is just a passerby, who takes a look and then leaves. But if it is a chaotic planet, where there are constant wars between each other, there is no suitable leader, or the leader is an extremely bastard, Li Qingyun will take action. It's not that he wants to be a good person, but it's easy to occupy a planet like this. In addition, you are the savior who saves ordinary people from the hellfire pit, and the people on this planet will respect you very much. In addition, after ending their disputes and wars, their population size will expand rapidly due to the arrival of peace. This is also a process of providing Li Qingyun with more life energy. Li Qingyun took over these planets, and then recruited a large number of people to help him build the altar, and then sent Shen Mecha to install the core energy transmission device. After the altar was built, the local people not only said that they would not destroy it, but on the contrary, they would regard the altar as the most important holy place and protect it completely. You mean, Li Qingyun is constantly occupying those chaotic life planets, and then building altars there to unite the local people. Thanos, the Thanos who wanted to collect the Infinity Stones, but Li Qingyun took the lead and collected 4 of them, was looking at the superstar in front of him with surprise. And Superstar, she was the first time to appear publicly in Thanos' Sanctuary 2 spacecraft. Originally, as the most mysterious intelligence officer under Thanos, Superstar should not appear in front of anyone. She only needed to investigate the relevant information and then tell Thanos the information through mental transmission. But now her identity has been exposed. Li Qingyun instantly expanded the exploration range by 1 light year, accurately found the location of Superstar, and almost killed Superstar directly. At that time, they were near the Void Land, and that place was originally a place where information flowed very quickly. The existence of the supergiant was naturally spread to all parts of the universe. Since her identity had been exposed, she naturally did not need to hide it anymore. Yes, but I think all this is not as simple as I know. The information that the supergiant had found out all pointed to the fact that Li Qingyun was expanding his power. But she had a feeling that Li Qingyun's purpose was definitely not to get more territory and manpower. There are so many superheroes on the earth, and there are many powerful ones among them, but Li Qingyun has never joined forces with anyone except Hulk, who was pulled over to help at the beginning. Although he ruled many planets such as the Void Land and Sakura, he did not take any soldiers from those places, except for a Valkyrie, and he did not even let these planets form any powerful armies. Expanding territory without training soldiers for yourself is obviously different from the general expansion of power. He once suppressed all the people on Sakura by himself. This shows that relying on numbers alone is meaningless for people like him. Thanos' face was very ugly at this time. The information brought back by Superstar this time made him feel more and more that he could not compete with Li Qingyun. Suppressing a planet by himself is not as simple as taking the army to slaughter half of the people on the planet like Thanos did. They still need to spend time to kill them bit by bit. If they encounter stubborn resistance, they will have to consume a lot of troops to win. Li Qingyun is different. He did not move, and directly suppressed everyone with invisible energy. If he is not going to recruit troops, then there may be something useful to him on these planets, Ebony Maw said. Could there be any special resources or energy on those planets? General Corvus Glaive also expressed his opinion. The intelligence shows that every time he arrives at a planet, he will ask the locals to build a huge altar for him. After the altar is built, a team composed entirely of robots will appear inside the altar. As for what they did inside the altar, we don't know, but from the memories of witnesses, it seems that some special machines and devices were transported inside. Supergiant provided more intelligence for everyone to speculate. Altar, Thanos repeated this keyword. In this piece of information, or in all the intelligence brought back by Supergiant this time, this should be the most important. My lord, do you need me to explore it? Supergiant asked. No, your identity has been exposed. It is not safe to be easily exposed to Li Qingyun's control. Thanos shook his head. Supergiant is very important to him. With him, Thanos can better grasp the information and intelligence in the universe. Ebony Maw, you and Black Dwarf go together and choose a remote planet with life. If possible, avoid the locals as much as possible and sneak into the altar. Just understand the specific situation inside. Thanos looked at Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf, two of the 4 black generals. One of them is a magician with a smart mind. The other is a strong warrior who obeys Ebony Maw's orders. It must not be difficult to let these 2 people sneak into a planet and understand the situation inside the altar. Yes, sir, Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf nodded at the same time. Then, the 2 of them turned around and left together. Only let the 2 of them go? General Corvus Glaive was a little worried. They knew nothing about the situation of this altar. If all this is a trap, let a vanguard unit go with them. If they encounter danger on the planet, the vanguard will be deployed directly to help them complete the mission. Thanos understood General Corvus Glaive's concerns and added another sentence. So, originally only Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf were going, but now they are going with the vanguard. This time, it will be the first time that Thanos and Li Qingyun come into contact, although only his subordinates come forward, and Thanos is only looking for the altar that Li Qingyun has set up on a certain planet. But this is the first time, the first contact between the 2 forces. The last time Loki came, it was aborted halfway. Chapter 90, Shen Mecha equipped with Void Engine. The planet chosen by Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf is a relatively remote one. There is basically no connection with the universe here, because this planet itself is a primitive planet in the feudal period. The reason why it is not said that there is no connection with the universe is that Li Qingyun has been here not long ago. The spacecraft was not allowed to enter the interior of the planet directly, because it would be directly exposed. Therefore, Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf went directly into it. They entered the planet through the light of transmission and came directly to the huge altar. This is a very large altar. From a distance, it looks like a mountain, and there is a sword and a huge throne carved on the mountain. The sword is the sword of heavenly killing, which is clearly recorded in the intelligence collected by the supergiant. As for the huge throne, it looks like an ordinary throne, but Ebony Maw always feels that this throne should not be simple. After all, it was something made by Li Qingyun, and the sword of heavenly killing is inserted on this throne. How could it be just an ordinary throne that can be put together with Li Qingyun's sword of heavenly killing? Maybe it is a very powerful piece of equipment like Thanos' floating throne. That should be the entrance to the altar. Ebony Maw's eyes were fixed on the center of the Shiansha sword carving, where the disc-like void engine was located. Let's go. Black Dwarf couldn't wait any longer. He walked over directly, swung the giant axe in his hand, and was about to chop at the gate. However, just as he was about to chop, a huge white mecha suddenly flew out of the gate. Yes, it flew out of the gate. On the huge stone gate that originally seemed to have nothing, a space wormhole appeared. In the hand of this white mecha, there was a big sword that matched its huge body. Behind it was a pair of mechanical wings, motionless, but they could help the mecha fly. This was the Teodi mecha in the Super God universe, which was now reproduced and manufactured by Li Qingyun with the help of the big clock, the Shen mecha. The big sword chopped out, and Black Dwarf was directly chopped by the sword. The huge impact force knocked the Black Dwarf away for dozens of meters, and a huge hole was directly cut in the armor on the Black Dwarf's body. The Lord of Shen has long said that someone might want to come to the altar to cause damage, so he arranged for us to guard this place in advance, the Shen mecha said, and while he was speaking, the same wormhole appeared from the other side of the gate, and a Shen mecha exactly like him flew out from it. Li Qingyun had already ordered the big clock to manufacture 200 Shen mechas as backup when he was in the void. Later, when the big clock continued to collect more materials, it would continue to manufacture. Now, in fact, 2 such Shen mecha guardians are secretly arranged in each altar. They will not show up on weekdays, but once someone wants to invade, their programs will be activated immediately. Just now, the Black Dwarf swung the giant axe to split the door, which was a warning of invasion. So these 2 Shen mechas were directly exposed. 2 robots. Ebony Maw looked at the 2 Shen mechas that appeared in front of him, with disdain in his eyes. The target data has been updated. Ebony Maw, one of the 5 Obsidian generals, is good at controlling magic. Black Dwarf, one of the 5 Obsidian generals, has extremely strong physical defense and strength. The latest Shen mecha said so. When Ebony Maw heard his words, his face immediately turned pale. The other party could judge their identities with just one look, and could directly know their abilities. These two robots may not be simple. And maybe they have a communication connection with Li Qingyun behind the scenes. The intelligence of the supergiant said that Li Qingyun has the ability to cross the universe in an instant. If these two robots pass the information to Li Qingyun, I am afraid that Li Qingyun will come immediately. By then, not only will their mission fail, but even their lives may be lost here. Go to hell. As he spoke, his right hand stretched directly forward, and a powerful force appeared on the bodies of the two Shen mechas, trying to twist and crush their steel bodies directly. Feeling the magic energy attack, start the Void Engine, load the Void Defense Program, Defense Type, Magic. These Shen mechas are not ordinary Shen mechas. In the Super God universe, the God of Death Karl had already equipped the King of Devour with a low-profile version of the Void Engine in order to test the Void technology. Although Li Qingyun could not prepare such a Void Engine for all Shen mechas in some key positions were still prepared. For example, the King of Devour, Fangli, and the Stag on Earth have them. The Guardian mecha stationed in the altars of various planets also have them. Although the power of these low-profile versions of the Void Engine is very ordinary, because of the Void technology, it is not a problem to create some special protection programs for themselves. Just like magic defense. This is a very common power in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. On Earth, there is the magician force of Kamartaj. Loki of Asgard is also a magician. The Great Clock has been analyzing for so long and has also done basic research on some of the magician's energy. Although they could not completely fight against him, they could already do basic defense. At this moment, as the Void Engine started, the Void Defense Program was activated, and the power that was constantly squeezing their bodies and destroying them directly was mostly removed. Without the forced suppression of this magical power, the Shen mecha immediately took the initiative to attack. They were all experienced warriors in the Teodi Legion, and they knew best how to expand their advantages on the battlefield. Now that they relied on the activation of the Void Engine, and had the ability to resist the direct control of Ebony Maw's magical energy on themselves, they should immediately launch a counterattack. They did not give Ebony Maw the opportunity to use other magical abilities, nor did they give Ebony Maw the opportunity to continue attacking and break their Void defense power. The two Shen mechas attacked together, and the big swords in their hands chopped directly at Ebony Maw's head. Ebony Maw did not expect that his magic attack would be destroyed so quickly, and there was a clear hesitation in his movements. Fortunately, he did not come alone. The black dwarf who was chopped by the Shen mecha before had always been beside Ebony Maw. Seeing two Shen mechas rushing over, he immediately swung his battle axe and chopped at the Shen mechas. The battle axe and the great sword collided, and Ebony Maw's body was shaken and flew backwards. But the actions of the two Shen mechas were also blocked. In this blocked gap, Ebony Maw had already reacted. He gently waved his right hand, and a huge rock under his feet immediately floated up, carrying him back quickly to a safe distance. Chapter 91 Shen Mecha vs Vanguard Core. Ebony Maw and the two Shen mechas had distanced themselves from each other. The black dwarf, who was knocked away by the Shen mechas, also got up from the ground again. This black dwarf had been hit twice, but he was worthy of being the only tank among the 5 obsidian stars. He had nothing else but to be able to take a beating. He was chopped twice, but he was not seriously injured. However, this situation could not last long. The combat power of the Shen mechas had exceeded their imagination. They were as big as black dwarfs, and their strength was also great, but their attack speed was even faster. Most importantly, these Shen mechas were immune to Ebony Maw's magic attacks. They were made of metal, but they could not be directly controlled. This was beyond his understanding. Summon the spaceship and ask them to put down the Vanguard, Ebony Maw said, and then a spaceship like a donut appeared in the sky above the altar at a very fast speed. Then, a large number of dropships were dropped, and some of them even came directly to the altar. Activate the light barrier and protect the altar, send a message to King Shi and request reinforcements. While the two Shen mechas were talking, they had already executed their respective operations. An invisible light barrier appeared above the altar, and a delivery device that was directly smashed into the altar was directly blown into powder. As a result, the delivery devices dropped later could only be placed outside the altar. At the same time, in Li Qingyun's manor on Earth, King Shi had received a signal from the two Shen mechas calling for reinforcements. Then, a Vanguard flagship of the Teodi Legion appeared above the manor. This flagship was built by King Shi and other Shen mecha warriors. Because they were once from the Teodi Legion, they were naturally best at building spaceships for their Teodi Legion. So they built such a flagship to be used as a means of transportation for them to travel through the universe. The 200 Shen mechas on standby on Earth, except for the 8 mechas that needed to stay in the manor, the Dark Star and the Dark Elf mothership, all entered the flagship. The space wormhole opened, and the flagship entered it directly. They flew to the planet where the distress signal came from at the fastest speed. At the same time, on another primitive planet in the distant universe, Li Qingyun also knew everything that was happening there at the moment. Ebony Maw, Black Dwarf, and a vanguard corps of more than 30,000, just to test what is hidden in the altar. Thanos actually sent such a team, really spared no expense. Li Qingyun sighed. He had long known that the altars he built could not always be safe and sound. Perhaps some of the natives on the planet had the intention of rebellion, or it was from other forces in the universe. After all, someone would attack these altars. Therefore, he specially arranged Shen mechas to guard them, and the interior of the altar was equipped with some special protection systems. For example, the light energy barrier and the emergency space transmission device. The purpose is to temporarily open a protection to protect the altar from being destroyed when the altar is invaded and the 2 Shen mechas cannot directly resist it. Then quickly transfer the Shen mecha troops left on the Earth through the transmission device to participate in the battle together. Led by the King of Shi. The army of 200 Shen mechas. Such a force is already a very powerful force even in the Super God universe. After all, the entire Teodi Legion, all their mecha warriors, the number does not exceed 1,000. And these 1,000 Teodi mechas command nearly 1 million soldiers of the Teodi Legion, and are the core force of the Teodi Legion. Do you need to go for support? The Valkyrie on the side stepped forward. There are several women around Li Qingyun now, but only the Valkyrie is his subordinate. The other women were also called nobles of this planet, who were personally sent here to serve Li Qingyun. Of course, Li Qingyun originally refused. But it was hard to refuse their kindness, so Li Qingyun had to accept it reluctantly. At this moment, he was lying on the dragon couch, with 3 young and beautiful women behind him. One was cleaning his ears, one was massaging his shoulders and back, and the other was massaging his thighs. The 2 young girls in front gently picked a most precious and sweet fruit in the local area, peeled it, and brought it to Li Qingyun's mouth. No, Li Qingyun shook his head, half-closed his eyes, and enjoyed it very much. The Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyun, who was like a real emperor at this moment, and looked at the group of beauties lingering around him, and the veins on her temples bulged. You don't want to go because you can't bear to give up this wonderful enjoyment. The Valkyrie has followed Li Qingyun through several planets. When they were on those planets before, Li Qingyun's behavior was still normal. But since arriving on this planet, he has completely shown a completely different side from before. Although he has solved the troubles on this planet and reversed the endless filth and corruption of this planet. But Li Qingyun, like the original nobles on this planet, began to indulge in pleasure. Every day, he was surrounded by beauties and drank and had fun. As Li Qingyun's subordinate, the Valkyrie couldn't say anything. Moreover, these beauties were all voluntary, and Li Qingyun had never forced them, so the Valkyrie could barely accept it. In addition, these selected women are really beautiful. Their figures, looks, and even their personalities are impeccable. If she were a man, she would probably sink. However, it's okay to enjoy it on weekdays. Now that the altar he built on other planets has been attacked, Li Qingyun is still enjoying himself here. Isn't that inappropriate? This already feels a bit like being too happy and losing one's ambition. Plaything. The word is not quite accurate. But that's about it. Don't worry, I'm not the kind of person you think, Li Qingyun said, but his action of touching the girl in front of him made the Valkyrie shudder. Just like that, you still say you are not. I'm leaving first. There was no intention to stay any longer. The Valkyrie turned around and walked out of the room, closing the door when she left. The following scene is not suitable for children. Big Clock, monitor the situation over there at any time, and find out where Thanos' Sanctuary number 2 is. Li Qingyun was still enjoying it, but in the dark matter plane, he was actually paying attention to the situation ahead. Already searching, the Big Clock replied. As early as the moment when Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf attacked the altar, the Big Clock had been monitoring the specific situation over there. Chapter 92, using the power of the void to crush the Ebony Maw. In the wormhole, the Teodi Vanguard flagship flew out. Nearly 200 Shin mechas flew out of the flagship holding long swords. On the flagship, a huge golden laser swept directly towards the large number of vanguards rushing in from a distance. Although the strongest attack weapon of the Teodi Vanguard flagship is not like the fierce tide that can directly blow a large city into ashes, it can also cause huge lethality. This sweeping past, and thousands of vanguards who rushed to the front were directly blown into ashes. Even the area where it was located was now a scorched earth. The Lord of Shin has ordered that high-powered attack weapons are not allowed to be used on the planet he protects, and the local environment must not be excessively damaged. This attack ends here, and it cannot be used again unless it is absolutely necessary. The voice of the Valkyrie came through the big clock. After hearing this order, the Shishi King and other Shen mechas immediately stopped the attack. After that, the Pioneer flagship of the Teodi no longer used any high-powered attack weapons. Why didn't the Lord of Shin allow us to use those weapons? If we use them, we can directly deal with these minions in front of us, several Shen mechas said in confusion. Their Teodi core used to do things like this. As long as they can wipe out the opponent's troops, they can use any weapons. As long as they don't blow up the entire planet, it's fine. We are Shen mechas now, not the previous Teodi core. Remember your identity first, King Shi said in a heavy tone. We know this, the Shen mechas answered in unison. They are now Shen mechas, and their god is the Lord of Shin. They all know this. This was set when the big clock re-engraved them into the current mechas. It is an order that exists in their memory and cannot be disobeyed. This planet is the territory of the Lord of Shin, King Shi replied. Understood, the Shen mechas no longer have any questions. This place belongs to the Lord of Shin. It is his own thing. Since it is his own thing, he naturally does not want it to be destroyed, so he told them not to use high-powered attack weapons and not to destroy the planet too much. The Master also said that it can be used when it is necessary. He did not completely restrict us. Let the Vanguard flagship be prepared. If the war gets into trouble, we will use it again, said Shishi, and the other Shen mechas around him no longer expressed their opinions. It's just that they don't use high-powered weapons. It doesn't take much effort to rely on the swords in their hands to deal with more than 20,000 Vanguard guards. All troops attack, Shishi gave an order, and nearly 200 Shen mechas, waving their long swords, flew towards the huge number of Vanguard guards on the ground. Without using the firepower on the spacecraft, there are only less than 200 robots, and they dare to fight against our more than 20,000 Vanguard guards. Are they really confident that they can win, or are they just brainless? Ebony Moore raised his head and looked at the Shen mechas rushing towards the Vanguard guards above, muttering in his heart. They have been following Thanos for a long time, and have led the Vanguard to invade other planets countless times. On those planets, even if they have more troops than them, they will be torn apart by the savagery and brutality of the Vanguard. When he saw the attack from the Vanguard flagship before, he thought that the other party would continue to attack with such absolutely powerful firepower. Unexpectedly, they only fought once and then stopped. Ebony Moore couldn't understand why they gave up the strong means of attack and chose to fight the Vanguard with robots instead. The other party is distracted. The two Shen mechas immediately waved their long swords and rushed towards Ebony Moore again. Although Ebony Moore was distracted and paid attention to the battlefield in the distance, he still paid attention to the side. Now seeing the two audit mechas rushing over, he casually waved his right hand, and a huge stone immediately appeared in front of him. As a magician, he couldn't control the Shen mecha itself, so he controlled the surrounding objects and attacked the Shen mecha. Humph! A cold snort suddenly came from midair. Then, a square frame composed of golden energy suddenly fell from the sky and covered Ebony Maw. The boulder he was originally controlling lost its function at this moment and fell to the ground. Black Dwarf watched this scene happen and quickly waved his battle axe to rush to rescue. But this time, before he could do anything, the two Shen mechas turned around and rushed towards him. On the left and right, two Shen mechas as tall as Black Dwarf waved their swords and slashed at him. Black Dwarf's strength and defense were very strong, but he was at most equivalent to Shen mecha. Now facing the siege of two Shen mechas and without the support of Ebony Maw, he immediately fell into a dilemma. He could only keep waving his huge axe and resisting with difficulty, while constantly retreating quickly. Not to mention saving Ebony Maw, he couldn't even save himself. Ebony Maw, the one who just dropped the golden energy shield, was naturally the leader of the Shen mecha, the former TOD civilization's devouring king. He also has a void engine in his body, and it is a void engine with a much higher energy level and function than the two Shen mechas that guarded the altar before. This devouring king had killed the angel Moi, who was a third-generation angel warrior and the right wing guard of Angel Yan. What is this? Ebony Maw was trapped in the energy shield, and his face, which had always been calm, now showed a panic expression. Because his magic ability was completely ineffective this time. Not only could it not work on the Shen mecha, but it also had no effect on other objects around him. Moreover, he felt a very strong suppression, which made him feel weak, as if he had lost all his strength at once. Construct the concept of void strike, prepare for execution, death penalty. Devouring King raised his right hand, and a purple ball of light condensed in his hand. This ball of light was condensed by void energy, and it was actually the energy form in the golden energy shield at this moment. With a sudden forceful squeeze, the purple ball of light instantly shattered. At the same time, all the energy in the golden energy shield immediately poured into Ebony Maw's body. This powerful magician, who once even crushed Doctor Strange in the movie, exploded directly in the golden energy ball. It still feels good this way, the Devourer King, he enjoyed the feeling of killing. Chapter 93 The Escaped Thanos. This Devourer is quite capable. Li Qingyun was standing alone on the roof of the palace at this time, looking up at the starry sky. The Devourer equipped with a void engine developed by the god of death Karl may not be as powerful as the third-generation super soldiers, but relying on the suppression of the void ability, even some third-generation super soldiers are not its opponents, the big clock answered. Does it mean that even I can't beat him? Li Qingyun narrowed his eyes slightly. You have the latest version of the void engine installed in your body. Although it can't reach the level of Huai's black hole engine, it is still easy to suppress the Devourer, even without the void engine. The real void technology is all in the database of the big clock. As the controller of the big clock, you can dissolve all the void attack methods he uses at will. Without the assistance of the void engine, the Devourer's actual combat power is comparable to that of the second-generation super soldiers, and it is no threat to you, the big clock answered. Besides, even if you don't use the void technology in the big clock, he can't threaten you. The big clock is very clear that in Li Qingyun's hands, there are still 4 infinite gems. Among these 4 infinite gems, the power of the reality gem is similar to the void. Even without the infinite gems, the Thor factor and the celestial group factor fused in Li Qingyun's body have already made him out of the category of ordinary super soldiers. That's it, Li Qingyun is not modest. He is a super soldier who is different from ordinary super soldiers. Relying on the world of infinite resources such as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Li Qingyun's development path is much broader than that of the Super Gods universe. The super soldiers of the Super Gods universe obtain supernatural powers by extracting things and materials that exist in nature. When using these superpowers, they are also based on the traditional energy of the Super Gods universe. That is, the so-called light energy, dark energy, biological energy and the like. But Li Qingyun is different. His supernatural factor comes from something unique in the Marvel universe. Thor's power comes from blood. The power of the celestial group comes from the life energy absorbed over a long period of time. And these two powers can be regarded as divine power. It is the kind of power that even ordinary people can use through some medium. For example, Jane Foster picked up Thor's hammer, and Star-Lord has the genes of the Celestials. As for the void engine that Devourer has, his ability can suppress Ebony Maw's magic, or because the Great Clock provided him with some information and data about magic in advance. Therefore, it is impossible to further suppress Li Qingyun, who has the power of Thor and the Celestials. Have you found the specific location of Sanctuary 2 where Thanos is? Li Qingyun asked. As long as Thanos exists, he is a threat to Li Qingyun. Now he has the power to destroy Thanos, so if he can find him, it would be best to kill him directly. Through the spaceship that Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf came on, we have found the interstellar coordinates of Sanctuary 2 and Thanos. But the other party cut off the communication with Sanctuary 2, so I can't actually confirm whether Sanctuary 2 is there through communication, the Great Clock answered. The reason why Shishi and his men drove the cross-flagship to that place but did not give priority to attacking the spaceship that Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf were riding was to allow the Great Clock to read its data and find out the whereabouts of Thanos. If this spaceship still maintains the communication signal with Thanos, the Great Clock can follow the signal and directly lock Thanos' specific location. But unfortunately, this spaceship did not maintain the communication link with Sanctuary 2. Open the wormhole, I'll go over and take a look first, although it has not been confirmed yet. Since it is possible, let's go over and take a look first. The wormhole was opened directly, and Li Qingyun walked over directly. On the other side of the wormhole, there was a chaotic asteroid belt. Looking around, Li Qingyun did not see Sanctuary 2, but he saw the mothership of the Chitauri Legion that was about to leave. In the movie, in Avengers 1, Iron Man carried a nuclear bomb and flew into the universe, and it was directly blown up by the mothership of the Chitauri Legion. With his eyes locked on the mothership of the Chitauri Legion, he saw what happened before. That was the scene of Thanos' Sanctuary 2 crossing the space wormhole and flying to other coordinates in the universe. The mothership of the Chitauri Legion was originally going to be transferred, but because its flying speed was much slower than Sanctuary 2, it stayed here temporarily. Quick, stop that human! An order came directly from the mothership. A large number of Chitauri soldiers and Leviathans that were originally scattered in space immediately turned around. The soldiers raised their weapons and fired lasers. The Leviathan swooped down directly, opened its huge mouth, and bit towards Li Qingyun. I didn't intend to touch you, but you came to attack me first. Li Qingyun originally just wanted to find the whereabouts of Thanos through the communication signal in the Chitauri mothership. Now, these soldiers took the initiative to attack. The Sword of Heaven's destruction was summoned, and Li Qingyun swung it directly, shooting out sword energy one after another. Li Qingyun's attack was powerful. No Chitauri soldier or Leviathan could withstand Li Qingyun's attack. But the number of the opponent was too large, and they rushed forward at all costs. Their goal was clear, that is, to attack Li Qingyun with all their strength. Even if they could not kill him, they had to stop him from doing anything else. Thanos must know that I am investigating his location. Li Qingyun understood the significance of the Chitauri core actions. The technology of the Great Clock is absolutely leading. But Thanos is also a very smart person. There was no news from the Ebony Moon Black Dwarf he sent. The supergiant had reminded him a long time ago that Li Qingyun had a strong information penetration technology. Therefore, in order to prevent any eventuality, he urgently moved the base. But he did not expect that Li Qingyun had arrived before the Chitauri core had time to move. It is needless to say that Li Qingyun will immediately use the Chitauri core to lock Thanos' position again. Therefore, Thanos, who was still in contact with the Chitauri army, directly ordered the Chitauri army to stop Li Qingyun at all costs. The location of Sanctuary 2 has been locked, but the other party is making a second space jump. I can't track its specific location after the first crossing. The Big Clock reported. The attack of the Chitauri army made Li Qingyun's action of opening the wormhole slow. Thanos has already made another space jump. Since Thanos has escaped, the Chitauri army will stay here forever. Li Qingyun's eyes turned to the huge Chitauri mothership in front. Chapter 94 The Lord of Shen shows his power. Li Qingyun originally wanted to solve the problem once and for all, and directly get rid of Thanos. But now, Thanos has run away, and the Chitauri are trying their best to stop him. The original target of attack has been lost, so these in front of him are naturally his targets of attack. Thunder. As soon as the word was spoken, countless electric currents immediately lingered on Li Qingyun's body. This is space. There are no clouds, no lightning energy. But through the transformation of the surrounding stars and dark energy, Li Qingyun can still summon endless thunder energy. Moreover, his is divine power, which comes from the body, not completely relying on external forces. Therefore, at this moment, the lightning energy summoned by Li Qingyun is more powerful than he has ever used so far. The Xianxia sword pointed forward, and countless lightning bolts burst out from the long sword in an instant. It is like a big tree, with the Xianxia sword as the main trunk, and then extending countless twigs. Each scattered tributary will accurately hide a Leviathan monster or a space airship driven by the Chitauri. The densely packed Chitauri and Leviathans around them began to fall continuously like flies hit by dichlorvos. They headed for the surrounding asteroid belts, the asteroids further away, and even exploded directly on the spot, turning into dust in the universe. The Chitauri army, which was originally so powerful, was reduced to only a few scattered ones after being attacked by lightning. The Chitauri mothership in the distance was constantly retreating at this moment. More Leviathans and Chitauri flew out of the mothership. They still flew towards Li Qingyun fearlessly. But the mothership was getting farther and farther away. The high-ranking officials of the Chitauri army commanding in the mothership were afraid in their hearts. Only those Leviathans who had no brains at all and the Chitauri soldiers who were mass-produced were truly fearless. The power of the gods, The Qianxia sword was raised, and the original thunder dissipated at this moment, replaced by an extremely powerful divine power, which was condensed on the Qianxia sword. Void engine started, loading the powerful power of the gods. The void engine on the Qianxia sword began to rotate at high speed. On the periphery of the Qianxia sword, a illusory sword shadow was constantly appearing. This sword shadow was constantly expanding, it became larger and longer. Finally, it gradually turned into a huge sword shadow that was several thousand meters long and hundreds of meters wide. And on the sword shadow, it was filled with powerful gods and void power. Cut, another word fell, and Li Qingyun suddenly swung the Qianxia sword in his hand and slashed towards the Chitauri mothership. The huge illusory sword shadow also chopped down quickly with his sword swinging. The sword shadow passed through the center of the Chitauri mothership, and the originally huge mothership was neatly cut at this moment. The mothership was cut in half. The explosion that followed, from the cut, began to spread to the four forked parts of the mothership, and the entire mothership was finally completely shattered in the explosion. It turned into fireballs, and was pulled by the weak attraction of the asteroids in the asteroid belt to collide. Finally, it completely merged with the asteroid belt. As for the Chitauri and Leviathans that flew out of the mothership and originally intended to rush towards Li Qingyun, they lost their ability to move because they lost control of the mothership. These Chitauri and Leviathans have only lost their ability to move, but their body functions and lives have not completely ended. As long as a new communication system is connected, they will wake up immediately, the big clock reminded. Do you need me to analyze the communication system and then change its code? According to Li Qingyun's previous habit, he always collected the spoils after the battle. This was the case with the Dark Elf's mothership and Ronan's Dark Star. Now these Leviathans and Chitauri can obviously be used. No, just destroy their codes and let them die forever. Li Qingyun had no interest in these Chitauri and Leviathans. Previously, he collected the Dark Elf mothership and Ronan's Dark Star in order to obtain more useful things. For example, the Dark Elf technology in the mothership, the black hole bomb and the stealth technology of large spacecraft were very good gains. Although Ronan's Dark Star did not have such useful technology, its database contained a lot of information related to the Kree Empire. There was also information about the Nova Corps and Xander. For Li Qingyun, who is in the stage of exploring the universe, these data were also very useful. As for the Chitauri and Leviathans at the moment, Li Qingyun had the Shen Mecha under his command, which was about enough. If more manpower was needed in the future, he could also select the most suitable people from the planets he had conquered for simple training and upgrades, and let them take on the role. There was no need to collect these Chitauri and Leviathans in front of him. Understood, the big clock agreed. At the same time, a command was directly transmitted to the nerve centers of the Leviathans and Chitauri in front of him. Although they had stopped moving, they were not completely dead. This command only prevented them from being resurrected in a short period of time. Once these creatures in outer space lose their ability to move for a long time, they will naturally die. Their brains have not been activated for a long time and will directly lose their original functions. Can we find any clues about Thanos? Li Qingyun asked. They have completely lost their whereabouts, the big clock replied. Contact Heimdall and ask him to investigate according to the direction we originally learned to see if there are any clues. Since he had already taken action, Li Qingyun planned to solve this trouble once and for all. However, the result was not what he wanted. Heimdall used his true vision to patrol once, but did not see any clues related to Thanos. Thanos and his sanctuary too have a completely hidden in the universe. I am afraid that they will not show up easily in the future. Because Thanos knew very well that Li Qingyun had already set his sights on him. If Thanos dared to expose his whereabouts as he did in the past, then Li Qingyun would probably arrive soon. With Li Qingyun's current strength, Thanos simply could not compete with him. One thunder attack killed thousands of Chitauri and Leviathans. One sword split the Chitauri mothership in half. He could even cross the distant universe with just a thought and appear directly in front of the enemy. Li Qingyun's ability has reached an unimaginable level of terror. This is another time that Li Qingyun has shown his power after the land of nothingness, and this time, the power he showed is enough to scare people. Chapter 95, The Madness of the Supreme Evolution. Li Qingyun's move this time can be said to have completely established his reputation as the Lord of Shin. Thanos, he and his army are notorious in the universe. For many years, all the powerful interstellar empires in the universe have kept their distance from him. The weak planets and civilizations are terrified. Because Thanos will find a planet from time to time and then directly slaughter half of the people on the planet. So far, it is difficult to count the planets that have been slaughtered by Thanos. But this time, the powerful Thanos was scared away by one person. His Chitauri army was all killed to stop this person. 2 of his 4 strongest generals died at the hands of the robots made by this person. The army of more than 30,000 vanguards was completely wiped out by the opponent with only 200 mechas. Who is this person? This person is naturally the Lord of Shin who ruled the land of nothingness. The Lord of Shin became famous, and the status of his subordinates naturally rose with it. In the universe, the people who know that Li Qingyun is under the command of the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are responsible for the management of the Void on behalf of Li Qingyun. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's him, experiment number 13, in the huge spaceship of the anti-Earth. The Supreme Evolutionary looked at the latest news sent back from the universe. He saw the picture of the subordinate of Li Qingyun, who was so powerful that he could shake the world. At first, he didn't care much. But when he saw that Rocket Raccoon was among the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, he immediately became excited. The Supreme Evolutionary, he has been looking for Rocket Raccoon for a long time. He has been looking for him in the entire universe for these years, but after Rocket Raccoon escaped from here, he disappeared like a mud dragon into the sea. Even if there is some news occasionally, he will soon move to other places. In this vast universe, it is as difficult to find an erratic person as to find a needle in a haystack. Send a message to the sovereigns, and have them send a fleet to the Void immediately to bring back number 13, the Supreme Evolutionary gave the order directly. This guy, who had a fake human skin glued to his face and looked extremely weird, looked even uglier when he went crazy. Boss, isn't this a bit too risky? Hula, one of the Supreme Evolutionary's right-hand men, who tried to turn against them and seize control of the spacecraft in the movie, stood up to remind him. Experimental subject number 13 is now a subordinate of Li Qingyun. Hula's words made everyone else present sluggish. Li Qingyun was the ruthless man who had just scared Thanos away and wiped out the Chitauri army. Maybe the Supreme Evolutionary didn't really understand the description of Li Qingyun in the intelligence just now. But they saw it clearly. Li Qingyun was definitely not someone they could afford to provoke. I said, let the sovereigns attack immediately and bring back experimental subject number 13. The Supreme Evolutionary ignored Hula's reminder. He is the founder of OG Company, the person with the most invention patents in the universe, and he has directly transformed many races, turning them from primitive and backward forms into today's intelligent life. Sovereign was created by him. In the eyes of the Supreme Evolution, Li Qingyun only occupied a few planets, while he, the Supreme Evolution, directly created the entire Earth. How can Li Qingyun be compared with him? Yes, there is no way. Hula is just an assistant to the Supreme Evolution. She has no right to refuse the order issued by the Supreme Evolution. Soon, an order issued from the headquarters of OG Company was transmitted to Sovereign. Those guys on Sovereign, who thought they were of the most noble blood in the universe, were all dumbfounded by this order. The High Priest Arisha's face was ashen, and the high-ranking members of the Parliament were silent. They all knew that the orders of the Supreme Evolution could not be disobeyed. But at the same time, they did not want to take the initiative to provoke Li Qingyun. The other party was in the limelight and had unimaginable power. If Sovereign took the initiative to attack the Void land ruled by Li Qingyun at this time, and even wanted to capture Rocket Raccoon under his command, this would definitely offend Li Qingyun directly. We have no choice. This is an order issued by the founder of OG Company himself. We cannot disobey it. Arisha shook her head helplessly. She didn't want to offend a strong man for no reason, but if they didn't take any action, it would be tantamount to betraying the Supreme Evolution and OG Company. When facing the sanctions of OG Company, they would also be unable to resist. In this case, between an enemy who only knew the reputation but not the specific strength, and a powerful creator who created them, he could only choose to offend the former. Immediately let the drone combat group prepare. The combat troops will take off in 30 minutes and head to the Void Land. Aisha gave the order, and the elders of the Parliament were all silent at this time. They were cunning and treacherous, and they would only protect the interests of the entire planet at the most critical moment. Aisha could control the unmanned combat group under her command at will, but the defense corps controlled by the Parliament would never participate. They will even prepare in advance. If the OG Company really pushes them too far, they will rise up to resist. All of these premises must be based on the continued survival of the civilization of Sovera. Half an hour later, thousands of remote-controlled unmanned combat spacecraft flew out of the planet Sovereign. They flew directly to the jump point of the space wormhole and headed towards the direction of the void. In the void, the people of the Guardians of the Galaxy did not realize that they had been targeted by the Supreme Evolution, let alone Sovereign's interstellar fleet was flying towards them. Li Qingyun defeated the Chitauri army by himself, and scared Thanos to flee in embarrassment. These news made the Void enter a carnival stage at this moment. They were originally prisoners of war forcibly ruled by Li Qingyun, but now they have transformed into the Lord of Shen, who has become famous in the universe. The current status of the Void in the universe is extremely high. In the past period of time, the number of space merchants and tourists coming and going here has been increasing. The natives of the Void Land have taken this opportunity to make a fortune. Their lives are as comfortable as they can be. However, these comfortable days were directly destroyed by the sudden arrival of the Sovereign Interstellar Fleet. These unmanned spacecraft broke in directly at the moment of their arrival and controlled all the people living here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. Is this cheating again? Hand over Rocket Raccoon, and we'll leave immediately. Aisha's words came out through the loudspeaker on the drone. Although she had to come here to find Rocket Raccoon, she still didn't want to have too much hatred with Li Qingyun. So, if she could take Rocket Raccoon away directly without a conflict with the Void, she would still be happy. Why do you want to take Rocket away? He has no grudges against you Sovereigns. Gamora is the first to stand up. At the beginning, they were just a temporary team, but now, they have really become a team. Yes, Rocket is our friend, he is also a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and a subordinate of the Lord of Shen. You want to take him away for no reason? This is absolutely impossible. Star-Lord directly stood up for Rocket Raccoon. Groot the Treeman and Drax the Destroyer also stood up at this time. Although most of the other people in the Void were hiding in the house, there were also some who were paying attention to this place. They have been with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while, and they have gradually come to accept this group of people. Now that they see them in trouble, they naturally want to help. I am here on the assignment of Og. This incident is only related to Rocket Raccoon. It is better for others not to get involved, Aisha said. Hearing the name of Og, Rocket's face immediately turned ugly. He already understood what was going on. It was the guy who made him what he is now, who came to find him. Why do you Sovereigns still listen to Og? You are not employees of their company. Star-Lord knew about Og. After all, it was the largest interstellar company in the universe. But Sovereign is a famous planet in the universe, and the Sovereigns are famous for their arrogance in the universe. How come they suddenly became Og's thugs? Because the entire Sovereign evolved from the primitive human race to the current level with the help of the Supreme Evolution. Li Qingyun's voice suddenly came from behind Star-Lord. How could Li Qingyun not know that the Void Land was invaded? Aisha did not take action directly, and gave Li Qingyun enough time to rush over. Lord of Shen. At this moment, everyone turned around at the same time and looked at Li Qingyun, who appeared out of thin air behind Rocket Raccoon. Lord of Shen. Aisha's face changed obviously. She was afraid of offending Li Qingyun too much, so she didn't dare to take action directly. But she didn't expect that Li Qingyun would come so quickly. Go back. From now on, there will be no relationship between you and the Supreme Evolution. Li Qingyun did not intend to attack these unmanned spacecrafts on Sovereign Star directly. If we go back like this, he will not let us go. Aisha also wanted to go back, but now, she had no choice. In this case, then leave all these machines behind, Li Qingyun said, and at the same time, a flash of thunder flashed in his eyes. The huge dark communication signal instantly cut off the connection between all the unmanned spacecrafts and Sovereign Star. All the operating systems were completely controlled by Li Qingyun at this moment. In front of the communication control of the big clock, all information systems are garbage. These thousands of unmanned spacecraft are completely controlled by communication. The big clock can easily seize control by directly cutting off their communication. However, Li Qingyun's move is simply invincible to everyone in the Void at this moment. Is this cheating again? Star-Lord sighed. In their eyes, Li Qingyun is simply a cheater. He just flashed lightning in his eyes and solved the thousands of unmanned spacecraft that threatened our entire void. Gamora felt a huge sense of powerlessness. Compared with Li Qingyun, they are really just a small ant facing a strong human. Even if they try their best, they may not be able to bite Li Qingyun. And Li Qingyun can crush them to death with just a flick of his finger. It's easy to drive away the Sovereign's people, but I'm afraid the Supreme Evolution will not give up. Rocket Raccoon turned around and looked at Li Qingyun, who was standing behind him at this time. Supreme Evolution, do you want me to take you to him for revenge? Li Qingyun is bored now. He failed to hunt down Thanos before, and although he killed the Chitauri army, it was not satisfying for Li Qingyun. Now that the Supreme Evolution is looking for trouble with him regardless of life or death, he will go to him to practice. By the way, he can also try out a mental control ability provided by the energy factor of the superstar that he has recently fused. You want to find the Supreme Evolution? Rocket Raccoon hesitated. He has a lot of life planets under his command. I just happen to lack life planets, so I can just acquire his odd company, Li Qingyun said casually, but Rocket Raccoon felt it was very abnormal. Abnormally strong. An interstellar company that is unique in the universe, is it really just something that Li Qingyun can acquire at will? This time, you have to take me with you. Valkyrie came out of the wormhole. The last time Li Qingyun went to find Thanos, he didn't take her with him. This time she came along specially, riding her white Pegasus with huge wings, wearing her Valkyrie battle armor. Who are you? Star-Lord and the others looked at the heroic Valkyrie and couldn't help asking. Valkyrie, the Valkyrie answered casually. If you want to follow, then follow, Li Qingyun said. Then we'll go too, Gamora spoke directly. I'll drive the Milan. Star-Lord turned and walked towards the helipad. Not long after, Star-Lord drove the Milan over. The Guardians of the Galaxy boarded the Milan one after another, and the Valkyrie still rode her Pegasus. Li Qingyun pointed to the front, and a space wormhole that could accommodate the Milan was formed directly. Go over, and the other side of the wormhole is the anti-Earth where the Supreme Evolution is. At this moment, the Supreme Evolution is angrily insulting Aisha in the virtual projection. Who told you to talk so much to them? My order was to bring back Subject 13 as soon as possible, not to negotiate with them. Now look what happened. Not only did you not bring back Subject 13, but you also lured Li Qingyun here. It will be impossible to catch Subject 13 in the future. You, the Sovereigns, are the most unsuccessful species I have ever created, boss. Hula came behind the Supreme Evolution and interrupted the Supreme Evolution's continuous output. The Lord of Shin is here, and he brought Subject 13 and all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy with him. Chapter 97 is a bit boring. After hearing what Hula reported, the Supreme Evolution, who was still about to continue to be angry, immediately calmed down. He walked to the glass at the front of the room and looked through the glass at Li Qingyun and others who were slowly walking towards this side in the distance. Everyone, attack! The Supreme Evolution had a gloomy face and gave everyone a direct order. So, those strange animals that had been transformed and were still standing still immediately rushed towards where Li Qingyun and others were. Guards who looked like pig heads but had steel lower bodies. Guards with bird beaks but muscles all over their bodies. There were also other soldiers of various shapes and sizes that were transformed from animals. They had extremely strong powers and powerful weapons. To be honest, they were a little stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the Chitauri Legion. But it was just a little stronger. And in terms of numbers, they were obviously not as many as the Chitauri Legion. Little minions, I'll leave it to you. Li Qingyun walked forward on his own. Behind him, the Valkyries and the Guardians of the Galaxy all rushed out. They stopped all the monsters that wanted to attack Li Qingyun. They asked to come here on their own initiative, so now they should play their due role. Without the interference of the shrimp soldiers and crab generals, Li Qingyun walked directly into the spaceship, and then started from the first floor and walked up one floor at a time. He could obviously locate the location of the Supreme Evolution directly. But he didn't do that. He just wanted to see what powerful people or weapons the Supreme Evolution subordinates had. However, the result disappointed him. Although there were many people who blocked him along the way. But they were just ordinary people. Even if there were some who were specially modified occasionally, their combat effectiveness was not worth mentioning. Li Qingyun just controlled a flying knife and killed directly from the first floor to the 10th floor, without stopping for a second. This universe, are you a little bored? The big clock asked. It had discovered Li Qingyun's state of mind at this time. Yes, Li Qingyun sighed. Although the universe outside is extremely vast, no matter how you look at it, it is not as exciting as the Earth. In the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, in all the movies that Li Qingyun had seen before crossing over, more than 80% of the events took place directly on Earth. Those super powerful villains seemed to be on Earth as well. Thanos, the only supervillain in the universe that he knew of, is now hiding and dare not show up. Ego has not come to provoke him for the time being. Now that a supreme evolution who doesn't know how to live or die has appeared, it seems that the situation is just like that. We have almost found all the life planets, then it will be a long process of absorption. After things here are dealt with, I will go back to Earth and study the technologies of the super god universe in your database with peace of mind. Li Qingyun has been out for more than half a year and has done a lot of things. Now that he has begun to feel bored, it is natural for him to go back to cultivate himself and further learn and improve his understanding of super god technology. Although he looks very strong now, his strength is actually not that strong. It's just that so far, he has only met some weak chickens. Although the Chitauri army and Ronin's Dark Army were destroyed, the number of people is just a matter of numbers for Li Qingyun, and numbers are not worth mentioning in front of the big clock. If we really count by strength, the strongest person killed by Li Qingyun is Ronin the Accuser. Therefore, it is necessary for Li Qingyun to continue to become stronger. Otherwise, it will be embarrassing if he can't beat those really powerful guys in the future. Be careful, the big clock reminded. At this moment, Li Qingyun, who was originally stepping into the command hall of this huge spaceship, immediately felt a strong energy bombarding him. The Supreme Evolution, although he died very poorly. But the ability he showed when he appeared was not weak. After all, he slapped Warlock Adam against the wall with a casual slap. Later, he also killed all the lives in the entire command center with an AoE damage. And now, the energy hitting Li Qingyun was exactly what the Supreme Evolution shot. Sword of Heaven's Destruction. Li Qingyun made a move casually, and the Sword of Heaven's Destruction appeared in his hand. On the Sword of Heavenly Destruction, the Void engine kept spinning, releasing the power of the Void, forming a Void shield around his body. Li Qingyun knew that the ability mastered by the Supreme Evolution was gravity. The Supreme Evolution could control gravity through the equipment on his body. The reason why Li Qingyun summoned the Sword of Heavenly Destruction was very simple, because the Sword of Heavenly Destruction was a Void weapon, and the ability of the Void level had the function of rewriting the rules of the universe. Through the Sword of Heavenly Destruction, Li Qingyun directly turned the gravity that was bombarding into nothingness. This move of the Supreme Evolution immediately lost its effect on Li Qingyun. Attack! Attack! The Supreme Evolution shouted anxiously. His attack failed, and it failed under the attack he deliberately launched. At this moment, the Supreme Evolution began to panic visibly. Since he had studied the method of controlling gravity, he could easily control everything with a wave of his hand. But just now, the power he was proud of had no effect on Li Qingyun. The other soldiers in the command room were obviously frightened by the state of the Supreme Evolution, but they continued to carry out his orders. He raised a weapon with powerful energy in his hand, and sent out energy rays, hitting Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun pushed forward with his left hand, and the space wormhole appeared invisibly around him. After entering the space wormhole, the energy rays that shot over immediately appeared behind the soldiers who launched the attack. These energy rays were extremely powerful, and how could those ordinary soldiers resist them? So, all the soldiers were directly taken away by the energy rays they shot. Now, only the Supreme Evolution and his two right-hand men, Hula and Tel, were left in the entire command room. This man and woman, who had a special metal device on their heads, had been assisting the Supreme Evolution in various cruel experiments for a long time. Go to hell, the Supreme Evolution roared, and a strong purple energy burst out of his body instantly. Under this energy burst, everything in the command room was destroyed, including the only two assistants left by his side, and the monster with octopus tentacles that was modified to control the entire spacecraft. Chapter 98, The Most Perfect Person in Your Eyes is an Angel? The Supreme Evolution looked around, observing every corner of the command room, looking for Li Qingyun's whereabouts. Ha, what Lord of Shen, didn't he die in my hands in the end? Not seeing Li Qingyun, the Supreme Evolution immediately laughed excitedly. Alice, a sigh came from the void. Then, Li Qingyun appeared in the original position. There was no change in his body at all. The wave of attacks that the Supreme Evolution had just launched with all its strength did not even hit Li Qingyun. Being able to control gravity is indeed a very powerful ability, Li Qingyun said, while slowly walking towards the Supreme Evolution. It's a pity that your control of this ability can be described as superficial. You are not worthy of this ability at all. Li Qingyun's words were like a steel knife, stabbing directly into the heart of the Supreme Evolution. Shut up. Shut up, the Supreme Evolution shouted madly, just like the heart-wrenching roar after being mocked by Rocket Raccoon in the movie. I am the Supreme Evolution. I will guide and create the most perfect creatures in this universe and create the most perfect society. I will be the greatest creator. The goal of the Supreme Evolution is to create a perfect race. However, his perfect race is built on the accumulation of countless lives. He has destroyed planets and species again and again but has not succeeded. The most perfect creature, you don't even know what perfection is, Li Qingyun sneered. At this moment, he has walked in front of the Supreme Evolution. The Supreme Evolution wants to take action and wants to attack Li Qingyun with his ability. But for some reason, his body is completely unable to move at this time. It seems that the power in his body has been deprived. He can only stand in place, involuntarily bending down and lowering his head, as if worshipping the man in front of him. The most perfect creature is like this. Li Qingyun stretched out a hand and gently tapped the Supreme Evolution's forehead with his index finger. A message was instantly transmitted to his brain. He saw a perfect figure. She had a peerless face, wore silver armor, and had a pair of beautiful wings behind her. The long silver hair was draped over his shoulders. He sat lazily on the lawn, raised his right hand gently, and a beautiful purple butterfly landed on his fingertips. The Supreme Evolution was completely stunned. The figure that appeared in his mind and the scene became eternal in his heart. He finally saw the perfect image that he had imagined countless times. He could close his eyes. The body turned into countless purple light spots, and then slowly dissipated. The Supreme Evolution finally saw the most perfect creature, but this was only the last scene he saw. Li Qingyun infused a huge amount of dark energy into the body of the Supreme Evolution, vaporizing its entire body. Wen Hexi? Is this the most perfect creature in your eyes? The picture that Li Qingyun transmitted to the Supreme Evolution's brain, the big clock naturally knew. And the picture of that scene happened to be the picture of Wen Hexi sitting on the lawn teasing the butterfly when testing Angel Yan's ability. Isn't she perfect? Li Qingyun did not answer, but asked directly. The angels are indeed the most perfect in appearance, but they are arrogant and conservative in their thinking. In the subsequent development, they have gradually been surpassed by the god of death Karl, said the big clock. What's wrong with being arrogant? What's wrong with being conservative? Li Qingyun said with some indignation. Does having stronger strength mean that a race is the most perfect? There is no absolutely perfect person in this world, but in the eyes of certain people, there are perfect people in this world. Li Qingyun showed the image of Wen Hexi, because in Li Qingyun's eyes, this is what he thinks is the most perfect person. No wonder you haven't found a girlfriend again. It turns out that you like the angel Hexi. The big clock is very clear that before crossing, Li Qingyun had pursued a girl. But after crossing, Li Qingyun gained stronger abilities. Logically, he could get any woman he wanted. That coquettish shield agent, the beautiful and smart Dr. Zhao Halen, the Valkyrie, and so on, Li Qingyun didn't like any of them. Even though there were many beautiful women around him on that planet some time ago, he just had some fun but didn't invest any real feelings. It's not that I have to be Wang Hexi of Xianji, it's just, as one's strength becomes stronger, his vision also becomes higher. In the past, he just needed to find someone who was pleasing to the eye and whose values were compatible with his. But now, when he sees those women, he can see all their thoughts at a glance and know everything about them. It's really not easy to like someone under such circumstances. Besides, since he already has a theoretically eternal lifespan, why bother to find a girlfriend? Isn't Li Qingyun living well now? Build me a gravity system in the dark matter plane that the Supreme Evolution used before. Li Qingyun retracted his thoughts. Although Li Qingyun's combat power is already very strong now, he will immediately configure those useful things. Gravitational control. Although Li Qingyun has not learned about the relevant content before, he is sure that there must be relevant technology in the huge database of the big clock. The Teoti core has already mastered the anti-gravity technology. How could the great clock, as the greatest celestial computer known to the super god universe, not have it? Manufacturing has begun, the great clock replied. At the same time, the corresponding equipment for controlling gravity has begun to be manufactured in the underground factory. The dark matter plane architecture, through the dark matter plane space, places equipment with various capabilities in it, and then provides capability support for Li Qingyun in battle. A super warrior has all the capabilities of a huge spaceship, which is only possible because of the existence of the dark matter plane architecture. And the most powerful gods, their dark matter plane architectures are often the most massive projects. Holy Kisha, her dark matter plane is bound to the sacred knowledge treasure house and the entire king's arsenal. Now Li Qingyun. He already has a great clock in his dark matter plane space. But he will not stop there. Continuously expanding and building more capabilities, Li Qingyun is always making himself stronger. Now Li Qingyun is a synchronous upgrade of super genes and dark matter planes. Super genes fuse more supernatural factors to obtain more powerful powers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The dark matter plane space, with Holy Kesha as the reference target, is constantly expanding. Chapter 99, Ego of the Celestial Clan. Not long after, the Valkyries and the Guardians of the Galaxy also came to the command hall. Looking at the empty command hall in front of them, they already understood what had happened. The founder of UG, the Supreme Evolution, was so easily killed by Li Qingyun. Not even a single corpse was left. Go and convey a message to all the civilizations under Ultron. From today on, they are all under my control. Li Qingyun was too lazy to go find a life planet in person. Now under the rule of the Supreme Evolution, there are several other life planets that can be directly incorporated into his command. Let them cooperate with the people I send to build the altar. If there are those who don't cooperate, just wait for the entire planet to be destroyed together. Li Qingyun's words made the Guardians of the Galaxy present dare not question it. Although they have not seen Li Qingyun destroy a planet, they have seen Li Qingyun destroy the entire Dark Legion. They are also convinced that Li Qingyun has the ability to destroy a planet. Because the power gem that is said to be able to destroy a planet of life in an instant is in Li Qingyun's hand. So far, Li Qingyun has never used the power of the Infinity Gems, but he is already invincible in the entire universe. At least in the eyes of the Guardians of the Galaxy, that's the case. Those who don't cooperate will be destroyed. You are really arrogant, a loud voice came from the distant sky. Li Qingyun turned around and looked outside the command room. The one who came is not a real entity. The sound of the big clock rang out, and Li Qingyun also saw who the person who came was. The Celestials, Ego. This is a character that only exists in the movie universe. He is the father of Star-Lord, and his identity is also full of doubts. He calls himself a Celestial, but there is no so-called Celestial in the universe. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are only gods, the Celestials, and the 5 great gods. Perhaps, the people in the Celestials are the Celestials, but almost every Celestial is a member of the Celestials, and these Celestials will also regard themselves as the Celestials. Ego is not a member of the Celestials, but he calls himself a Celestial, so Li Qingyun judged that he might have been one of the seeds sown into the universe by the Celestials. However, Ego had problems during his growth, which resulted in the original celestial body not appearing, but forming the current planet. Therefore, he is obviously different from the Celestials in terms of energy, life form and self-awareness. You are already here, why are you still parked outside? Li Qingyun said, and at the same time, from above the clouds, a golden spaceship slowly flew towards this side. This spaceship is different from a regular spaceship. It does not have so many accessories to maintain the various functions of the spaceship, it just has a shell. The energy driving the spaceship comes from Ego's own power, so it does not need any other things to assist. Lord of Shen? You should be the same as me, right? Ego appeared above the spaceship. It was an old man, and he was trying to pretend to be Star-Lord's father. Although he was originally Star-Lord's father. But in fact, as a planet, he can be in any state. Why do you say that? Li Qingyun tried to see through Ego's thoughts, but he couldn't see through them at all. Perhaps Ego himself was just an avatar transformed by energy. Or perhaps his energy level had reached a certain level, so that Li Qingyun's current insight could no longer see through it. I feel genes similar to those of the Celestials in you, but you are obviously not a member of the Celestials, Ego said. Yes, I have the energy factor of the Celestials, and I am indeed not a member of the Celestials, but I am even less likely to be a ball like you, Li Qingyun's Celestial's energy factor, but he took the initiative to collect it, and after analysis, he integrated it into his genes. Li Qingyun's main composition is super genes, and the Celestials factor, the Thor factor, and the Superstar factor are just part of the energy integrated into his super genes. Even if you and I are not exactly the same, we are still somewhat related. How about we join forces? Ego has always only thought about ruling the entire universe by himself. But today, he opened his mouth and invited Li Qingyun to cooperate. That's because he also felt the strength of Li Qingyun, and knew that with just his clone, he probably couldn't take Star-Lord away from Li Qingyun. Join hands? Join hands and treat your own son as a battery. Use the energy in his body to activate the seeds you buried in various places in the universe, and then control the entire universe. Li Qingyun's words made Star-Lord, who was struggling on the side, change his face immediately. What the hell is this battery? You sow seeds all over the universe just to find a child who can be used as a substitute for yourself. For this, you even kill the mothers who gave birth to your children with your own hands. A boy like you is not even as good as a beast. If I join hands with you, won't I be even worse than you? Li Qingyun continued to speak, and the truth revealed in his words instantly made Star-Lord go from being stunned to angry. All his thoughts were sorted out. Ego's goal is to rule the entire universe, and the way to rule the entire universe is to create a descendant with the same blood as him, and use the power of this descendant to activate the seeds he buried on other planets in the universe. In the process of creating humans, after the other party gave birth to offspring, he would directly kill those mothers. Therefore, Star-Lord's mother did not die of illness, but was killed by Ego. Asshole, I'm going to kill you, Star-Lord roared angrily, pulling out a weapon at his waist and launching a round of continuous attacks on Ego. Rocket Raccoon and Groot, the tree man, also responded immediately. One took out an energy gun, and the other directly threw out a long vine, both of which attacked one at the first time. Ego's face was gloomy, but he didn't say anything. He just raised one hand casually, and a white energy formed a shield and appeared in front of him. Whether it was the laser shot or Groot's long vine, they were easily blocked. Seeing that his attack had no effect, Star-Lord directly threw away the weapon in his hand, spread his hands in front of him, and two white light balls quickly formed. The moment he saw the ball of light, Ego's expression changed immediately. His eyes revealed undisguised greed. He had finally found the offspring who had inherited his celestial gene, a perfect battery, right in front of him. He had to take this battery back no matter what. Chapter 100, Ego, who can't tell the difference between the big and small kings. Ego's eyes were already glowing green. For tens of millions of years, he had been sowing seeds among countless races in the universe. Ego had worked so hard to find a perfect offspring, the best battery to implement his plan. And today, he found it. Come here, he swung his right hand forward, and a long whip formed by white energy rolled towards Star-Lord. Ego wanted to grab Star-Lord by force and leave quickly. Li Qingyun might not be able to beat him now, but if he returned to his original body, Li Qingyun would not be his opponent. If he waited to absorb Star-Lord's power and activate all the seeds scattered in the universe, his power would become stronger. By then, let alone Li Qingyun, even if the real celestial group came, they would not be his opponent. Want to snatch someone directly from me? Do you think I'm not here? Li Qingyun said, and stepped hard on his feet, and an invisible energy wave immediately spread out from his body. This invisible energy wave directly covered the area of dozens of meters around Li Qingyun. Naturally, Star-Lord and the others were also protected. The energy whip that Ego swung out could not get close to Star-Lord under the obstruction of this energy wave. Li Qingyun, are you really going to fight me to the end? Ego was very angry. He originally did not have much hostility towards Li Qingyun. He hoped that they could be unrelated to each other and live in peace. But now, Li Qingyun was blocking his actions. What if I fight you? Li Qingyun asked back. Ego wanted to take Star-Lord away to realize his plan that he had prepared for tens of millions of years. Over the years, he has planted seeds on various planets in the universe, and now these seeds have already taken root in various planets. If Ego really stimulates these seeds, they will directly occupy the entire planet and become part of Ego's energy source. At that time, Ego will directly be the strongest existence in the entire universe. When that time comes, will Ego allow other people to exist and pose a threat to him? Since you insist on going against me, let's see who is stronger. Ego spread his hands, and two white energies gathered in his hands to form two spears. After the spears were formed, he threw them out and stabbed straight at Li Qingyun. Li Qingyun took another step forward, and his body came out of the original spaceship into the air. A burst of golden light was stimulated on his body. This light was the power of the Thunder God and the power of the God group in Li Qingyun's body. Li Qingyun did not use dark energy now, nor did he use the attack methods of his dark matter plane. He wanted to use pure divine power to compete with Ego in front of him. Grabbing forward with both hands, the two spears thrown by Ego were directly caught in Li Qingyun's hands. Golden energy emanated from the palm of his hand, and the spears formed by the white energy were completely dissipated in an instant. The power of the gods. Ego saw the golden light emanating from Li Qingyun and knew what the essence of this light was. Although your power of the gods is very pure, it is obvious that your foundation is not very deep. You should have just obtained the genes of the gods not long ago, right? Ego saw the weakness of Li Qingyun. Although Li Qingyun's genes of the gods are very strong, it is obvious that Li Qingyun has not experienced a long-term primitive accumulation of the gods. The gods in a normal state need to go through billions of years of long years of gestation and absorb millions of years of human life energy before they can finally take shape. But Li Qingyun, the energy in his body, obviously did not go through this long process. The reason why Li Qingyun can now exert such power is just because he has accelerated his absorption and transformation of life energy through other means. And this method should be related to the fact that Li Qingyun has been conquering different life planets in recent times. You and I are basically the same. In order to become stronger, you have been constantly expanding your territory. You try to gain more energy by ruling more planets. It's just that my method is a little more direct than yours. Seeing Li Qingyun's true situation, Ego was more confident when facing Li Qingyun. He originally thought that Li Qingyun would be such a special existence, but now in Ego's eyes, Li Qingyun and him are no different at all. And Li Qingyun's approach, in Ego's opinion, is even more stupid. Because the efficiency of Li Qingyun's method is too low. Frog in the well, do you really think that the sky you see is the whole sky? Li Qingyun looked at Ego with disdain. For him, the power of the celestial god group is only a part of his total power. But for Ego, the power of the celestial god clan in his blood is all his power. I don't have the power of the celestial god group, at most I just lose a part of the help. If you don't have the power of the celestial god, you will completely become a pile of garbage. My increase may be slow, but I am increasing on a strong basis, and it is always increasing. Your method may allow you to go from a poor household to nouveau riche in an instant, but before you become a nouveau riche, you will always be standing still. That's it. How smart do you think you are? Li Qingyun laughed, and was laughed at by Ego's ignorance. A person who is getting stronger every day, every hour, and even every second. And a person who has remained the same for tens of millions of years, who has greater potential? Everyone can see this. What's more, Li Qingyun himself is now on par with Ego. Ego suddenly figured out the truth. He also saw how powerful the person standing in front of him might be in the future. Today, no matter what, you must hand over Star-Lord to me, Ego roared angrily. Li Qingyun will become stronger and stronger, there is no doubt about that. Therefore, if Ego wants to surpass Li Qingyun, the only way is to take Star-Lord away and complete his plan directly. Otherwise, even if Li Qingyun today is not his original body's opponent, he will no longer be able to fight against Li Qingyun in the future. How? Li Qingyun shook his head helplessly. Until this moment, you can't recognize the reality. Li Qingyun really looked down on Ego. What kind of guts? What kind of strong people who have lived for tens of millions of years? He can't tell the difference between the big and small kings at all. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.